Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special, most head-patable stream. We're gonna be doing some reading today. That's right, we're gonna use our eyes, we're gonna use our brain, and we're going to use our voice to verbalize a story into being. It's gonna be a great time. I have brought some tea. I have brought my Chinese herbal throat medicine to make sure my throat is, you know, not dying middle of the way through. And I have some water, baby. We're prepared. Let's freaking go. But first, kapat! Wait, that one wasn't nearly as epic enough. Kapat! Okay, there we go. And of course, that is directed at Glitch Reality's head for being first. But also DK, hello! And also hello, not Tony, and hello, Dude. I hope you have snacks ready. I hope you have drinks ready, because we're gonna get cozy here. Remi, the hates reading Dreamfox reads. That's right, we're gonna read. I discovered when last time on Dragon Ball Z, on Friday when we were reading the story, I very much enjoyed it. It was very cool being able to share my writing, but also like perform the writing. Hey, he remembered the title. I remember the title, but I remembered it as the introduction was going. I'm like, oh my god, Twitch exists. So I had to go in there and change that quickly. Swoosh swoosh tea. But yes, this is the Marionette family section. So if you have watched and observed the original video, Alice's Dance of Discord, then you would know that Alice kind of like reverse Alice in Wonderland herself to the material plane. She found herself in a town. She was like, wow, people are all just chill and vibe, and she tried making bonds. It didn't work because she didn't really speak the language there, and it all kind of blew up in her face. She got angry, enchanted a lot of people, and essentially just kind of turned the town inside out, turning people against each other. And then she was like, wow, I feel kind of dead and empty inside after all that. I know how to cure my ails. I will find myself some parents, I will enchant them, and then I will be a happy dude living in happy life. It's gonna be great. That was her plan, at least. And that's right, at the end of that story, she finds the parents, or soon to be parents, enchants them, and then it ends on a happy note, question mark, of, but maybe she has found happiness, maybe she has found love. But for all of you that were here on Friday, we read the section after this section, which is where, you know, she gets taken to the Wizard Island, and you know, she may not be happy there, but let's not focus on that. Let us instead focus on there's a little bit of happiness, and also possibly some sadness. I'm neither gonna, you know, confirm nor deny how there's gonna be sadness. But there might be some sadness. But also I have my tea with me. I have this new tea. It smells like ass. It's called kava tea. Apparently it's supposed to make you like actually like sleepy, eepy, and relaxed. So we are gonna put that claim to the test, and we're gonna see if it makes me eepy. I'm kind of apprehensive about it because it really does smell like ass, but we're going to give it a try. Chance of sadness 9,900%. Okay, maybe Let's also make sure Princess Head Pat Bot is working. Do a backflip right now.
Oh dear darling, if only I could perform physical feats like backflips. My expertise lies in the art of head pats and hand holding rather than gymnastics. Pat, pat, pat.
Pat, pat, pat. We might need the glasses as well. Let me just put on. Oh, those are not glasses. Those are my ears. Hold on. My glasses now! Glitched! There we go. Okay. I am now Remi the reading font. I am now Remi the reading fox. And we're gonna do some reading. Let me just cut that. YouTube just crashed on me. YouTube. Just let me get rid of the music because it might be a little bit distracting. There's no pat on my head. What the heck's up with that? And we're gonna have some nice stormy weather in the background. It doesn't match the snow in the background, but don't worry about that. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, let me pull up the story here. I want head pats too. Hello, Bale Cup. Ta-da! Let me pull it up here. Did you steal my glasses again? You can't just rob a fox of his glasses. Hold on. Lost the wizard story, Marionette family. There it is. So we do actually get some happiness in the beginning. The first chapter is called A Dream Come True, which, you know, it essentially is. I'm gonna restore my glasses. Apparently not. I'm gonna restore my own glasses. Thank you very much. Let me move myself a little bit over here. Gonna scoot this over here. Chaos bot hates me. Glasses. I wanna do the glasses command now. No! No glasses command. I need these to read. Well, not really, but they make me look cute, okay? Okay. Before I start, does anyone have any questions? If so, just raise your hand and I will pat you, and I will do my best to answer the question. You cannot small me, Glish reality. I am immune to such trickery. Let me try taking a sip of this. Oh, ew. Ew. Oh no. That tastes awful. I just want my calm yogi
Quick
tea
question.
back.
What is the capital of Bulgaria?
Oh my god, look at that! I don't have to answer the question. Yay, Vale, coming back, rejoining Head Pat Squad member Cuppat. Thank you for joining. Now you can spam Head Pat emotes as well. But let me rephrase this. Does anyone have any questions about the story? Any questions about the story, anyone? Saved by the bungo. Bulgaria. I've never been very good at capitals. That's like in like the southern west part of Europe? No, east. Southeast? Hold on. Bulgaria. My brain is so huge. The capital is apparently something. Sophia. Wow. Yeah, why am I not in it in Bulgaria? I don't know. That's a question only you can answer. But yes. If without further ado, let us start the story. Let me just center this a little bit. Pat. The morning sun streamed through tall windows, casting a golden light across Alice's new bedchamber. She stood before her vanity, marveling at her own reflection, not her true form with its silver hair and crimson eyes, but the carefully constructed illusion of a proper, noble daughter. Dark chestnut hair fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, and warm brown eyes sparkled with barely contained joy. The face that looked back at her was everything she had dreamed of during her centuries in the Nightwood, poring over stolen fairy tales by eternal moonlight. How different this was from her first days in Valerous, when she had arrived lost and alone, struggling to understand even the simplest conversations in the town's unfamiliar tongue. She remembered watching the townspeople from the shadows, families sharing meals, friends laughing together, couples walking in hand. The loneliness had gnawed at her then, driving her to cast pranks and cruel enchantments out of spite and jealousy. But that was before she had found her way to this grand manor. Before she had seen the deep... I am dying. Let me take a sip of this tea. Oh my god, that's so bad. Man, if this tea actually does make me relax and eepy, that's gonna be great, but this tea does not want to be drank. She found her way to this grand manor before she had seen the deep sadness in Lord and Lady Krasimski's eyes, a sadness that mirrored her own longing for a family. With the gentlest of enchantments, she had woven herself into their hearts, becoming the daughter they have always dreamed of. And though the magic that bound them was of her own making, their love felt real in all the ways that mattered. "Ah, Alice, darling," her mother's voice called from the hallway. "Are you ready for breakfast?" "Coming, mother." The word still sent a thrill through her chest. Mother. Such a simple thing, yet it held all the warmth and belonging she had yearned for in the Nightwood's eternal moonlight. Alice smoothed her morning dress, a confection of pale blue silk that had that would have seemed impossible during her Fey wanderings. Lady Maya stood waiting, elegantly dressed as always, her face lighting up at the sight of her daughter. The love in her expression might have been crafted by magic, but the joy it brought Alice was entirely genuine. "You look lovely this morning," Lady Maya said, reaching out to adjust a stray curl. "Though you always do. We're so blessed to have you." They made their way down the grand staircase together, their footsteps echoing softly off marble floors. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors watched their descent face. I am already dying. Fox versus T, who will win? I wish I could just chug this. You know, the more I'm sipping it, the more it isn't too bad. That smell is still horrible, though. Also, fun fact, this kava tea that I'm drinking, it's kind of funny because in Polish the word kava means coffee. So it's like supposed to be relaxing, but in other language is energetic. It's been 7 minutes. Flop_Remi. Stockholm syndrome tea. I'm neither going to confirm nor deny that. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors watched their descent faces their faces that Alice has studied carefully to better understand the family she had joined. She had woven herself so thoroughly into the Krasimski's memories that even these long-dead relatives were now part of her manufactured history. In the breakfast room, Lord George sat at the head of the table, reading correspondence while he sipped his morning tea, sip. He looked up as they entered, his face warming with parental affection. "There's my girl," he said, setting aside his letters. "I trust you slept well?" "Like a princess in a fairy tale," Alice replied, the words carrying a private irony that made her smile. She had spent so long reading those tales in the Nightwood, dreaming of grand manners and noble families. Now here she was, living out those very dreams, even if she had needed magic to make it real. As servants brought in plates of delicate pastries and fresh fruit, Alice felt her heart could burst with happiness. Every detail was perfect, from the fine china to the silver teapot that caught the morning light. She had studied noble etiquette extensively since her arrival, determined to play her part flawlessly. Now each precisely correct gesture came naturally. Which spoon to use, how to hold her teacup, the proper way to dab her lips with a napkin. "Don't forget," Lady Maya said, as she stirred honey into her tea. "We have the dressmaker coming this afternoon. The spring ball is only a week away, and you must look perfect for your first major social event." Alice's pulse quickened with excitement. A real ball, just like her stories. There would be music and dancing, elegant gowns and glittering jewels. Everything she had read about in those stolen books was becoming a reality. She had practiced her dancing in secret, determined to move as gracefully as any noble-born lady. Sip, sip, sip. "I've also arranged for additional music lessons," Lord George added. "Your playing has improved tremendously, but a few more sessions couldn't hurt before the ball." "Why, thank you, Father," Alice said, warmth spreading through her chest at his thoughtfulness. She had taken to pianoforte with determination, though it was quite different from her beloved kalimba from the Nightwood. But that was part of her new life, learning to adapt, to become the perfect noble daughter in every way. After breakfast, Alice retreated to the manor's extensive gardens. Here, among the carefully tended roses and manicured hedges, she could almost pretend she was back in the wild beauty of the Nightwood. But these gardens were different. Ordered, controlled, beautiful in their own disciplined way. Like her new life, they represented the perfect balance of nature and civilization. She settled on a stone bench, breathing in sweet morning air. A nearby fountain provided gentle music, so different from the wild songs in the Nightwood, but soothing in its own way. This was everything she had ever wanted. A loving family, a beautiful home, the promise of balls and parties, and all the trappings of a noble life she had read about for so long. Yes, it was built on enchantments and illusions. Yes, she had to maintain constant magical control to keep her true nature hidden. But as Alice sat in perfect morning sunshine, surrounded by the trappings of her fairy tale come true, she couldn't bring herself to regret any of it. She was home. She was loved. And for the first time in her centuries of existence, she truly belonged. Wow! That's chapter 1. See, dreams come true. See, Alice does get happiness, guys. Come on. I don't just write miserable things happening to my characters for no reason. Come on. Also, hello, Craig. Pat, 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 pat. We're currently embarking on a reading adventure and sipping tea while we're at it, too. Temporarily? What makes you say that? Why would you say something like that? Princess Head Pat. Can you believe this guy? He thinks Alice won't be happy forever. Well, I never. The next chapter is The Weight of Love. The conservatory blazed with midday sunlight, its glass walls transforming the spring heat into a gentle warmth that filled the space with drowsy contentment. Let me blow my nose real fast, 1 second. Fox can breathe? Let's go. Happiness down, trauma up. Not yet, come on. We're still in the happy section. Come on, glitched. Exotic flowers bloomed in carefully arranged beds. Their colors as vibrant as the silk dresses Alice now wore daily. Lady Maya sat in her favorite wicker chair, her fingers busy with delicate embroidery work, while Alice reclined at a nearby chaise. How do you pronounce that? We're just gonna say chair. Pretending to read, but actually watching her mother through lowered lashes. The scene was like something from one of her stolen fairy tale books. The elegant mother and devoted daughter sharing a peaceful afternoon, surrounded by beauty and refinement. Even the air seemed to refine here, perfumed of jasmine and roses rather than wild, untamed scents of the nightwood. Yet. I'm no comment. Alice breathed in deeply, savoring every moment of this dream come true. Your hair has come loose again, dear, Maya observed, setting aside her needlework. Come here, let me fix it for you. The words were spoken with such natural, maternal affection that Alice's heart swelled with joy. She rose and moved to sit at her mother's feet, a position that had become comfortingly familiar over the past months. Maya's fingers moved through Alice's enchanted brown hair with gentle precision, unknotting and rebraiding with practiced ease. Though it took constant concentration to maintain the illusion of texture and color beneath her mother's touch, Alice found herself relaxing into the intimate gesture. In the nightwood, she had often dreamed of moments like this, a mother's gentle touch, the simple act of having her hair brushed by loving hands. You know, Maya said as she worked, when I was your age, my own mother taught me that a lady's hair is her crown. She would spend hours brushing my hair, teaching me all the little secrets of noble life. She chuckled softly. I'm so grateful I finally have a daughter to share these moments with. The genuine happiness in Maya's voice made Alice's heart soar. She had woven her enchantments with such care, creating not just acceptance, but true maternal love. Even now, sunlight streaming through the conservatory's glass ceilings caught the golden threads of magic that bound them together. This is visible to... Man, reading is hard. I feel like this was easier when I was like sleepy eepy on Friday. I feel like I'm still too hyped up on caffeine. I'm going too fast. I need to breathe. I need to go. And I need a sip. Sipping is important. Delicious. Even now, sunlight streaming through the conservatory's glass ceilings. Tell me again about when I was little, Alice requested, loving how easily the manufactured memories flowed between them. About my first dance lessons. Maya laughed, her fingers never pausing in their gentle work. Oh, you were so determined! Just 6 years old, standing on your father's feet as he waltzed you around the ballroom. You insisted on practicing for hours, even though the steps were far too complex for such a little thing. Alice closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the false memory as if it was real. She could almost see it. Herself as a small child, dark hair in ribbons, counting steps with fierce concentration as her father guided her across marble floors. The fact that it had never happened didn't make the warmth it brought to her heart any less genuine. There, Maya said, patting the finished braid. Perfect as always. She reached for a small box that had been sitting beside the chair. I have something for you, darling. I've been waiting for the right moment. Inside the box lay a necklace of perfectly matched pearls, each one gleaming with a soft, luminous sheen. They were your grandmother's, Maya explained, lifting them carefully, passed down through generations of our family's daughters. For the first time since creating her new life, Alice felt a tiny pit form in her stomach. These pearls had indeed been passed down through generations. Just not to her. Never to her. The weight of her deception pressed against her chest as Maya fastened the necklace around her neck. There, Maya said, turning Alice to face the conservatory's windows, their reflections clear in the bright afternoon light. Oh no. Now look at how stunning you look. Alice stared at the reflection, the elegant noble mother and her perfectly crafted daughter, sunlight streaming around them like a blessing. The pearls felt heavy against her skin, each one a small reminder of the lie she was living. But as Maya hugged her from behind, pressing a kiss at the top of her head, Alice pushed away the guilt. This was everything she had ever wanted, everything she had ever dreamed of during those long twilight years. A few precious pearls were a small price to pay for such perfect happiness. "Thank you, Mother," she whispered, and meant it with all of her heart. Her magic hummed contently beneath her skin, maintaining the illusions that made this moment possible. Her appearance, Maya's memories, the entire framework of the relationship. But the love she felt was real as the sunlight that wrapped them both in its golden embrace. The rest of the afternoon passed in gentle conversation and shared confidences. Maya taught Alice the finer points of embroidery, their heads bent together over the delicate work as sunbeams danced around them. Every so often, Alice's fingers would brush against the pearls at her throat, and that tiny pit of guilt would flutter in her stomach. But then Maya would smile or laugh, or share another loving glance, and Alice would remember why she had crafted all this. It was worth it, she told herself, as the sun began its slow descent towards evening, painting the conservatory in shades of amber and gold. The slight weight of deception was nothing compared to the joy of finally having everything she had ever dreamed of. And if sometimes the pearls felt like tiny tears against her skin, well, that was simply the price of making fairy tales come true. Yay, look at that. Another happy chapter, guys. Another happy chapter. Come on. You think I would write depressing things? What? No way. Yay, we got 2 cheer underscore Remy's. Let's freaking go. Cup pat. Also, what is that? Flop underscore Remi book watergun Remi peak. What do these hieroglyphics mean? Yes, you would. I know what you're talking about. Chapter 3. A Father's Doubts. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Lord George's study, catching dust motes that danced in the golden rays. The room was a testament to order and precision, leather-bound books arranged by subject and alphabetized. Quills lined up at perfect angles on the mahogany desk, ledgers stacked with mathematical exactness. Even the curtains hung in perfectly measured folds, their emerald fabric adding the only touch of rich color to this otherwise austere space. Alice sat in her favorite armchair by the window, watching her father work. She loved these quiet mornings when they shared the study, each absorbed in their own pursuits, but enjoying the comfortable silence between them. George's methodical nature had fascinated her from the first day, so different from the chaos of the Nightwood, yet somehow comforting in its predictability. "Father," she had said, looking up from her book on noble genealogy, could you tell me again about great-grandfather's role in the northern campaigns? She had memorized every detail of their family's history, determined to never slip in her role as the perfect daughter. But she loved hearing him tell the stories. George smiled, setting aside his correspondence. The Northern Campaign. Your great-grandfather was instrumental in securing the alliance with House Blackthorn. He rose from his desk, moving to the great map that hung on the wall. His fingers traced the trade routes with practiced familiarity. You see, by controlling these key ports... Alice joined him at the map, absorbing both historical details and the simple joy of having a father who was delighted in teaching her. The sunlight caught the silver at his temples, highlighting the intelligence in his dark eyes. Of all of her enchantments, the one on George had required the most finesse. His analytical mind constantly tested the boundaries of her magic, seeking patterns and explanations, even when spelled to accept her presence. You have his eyes, you know, Lord said, suddenly studying her face. Same shade of... He stopped, brow furrowing slightly. Alice felt her magic surge instinctively, soothing away the contradiction before it could fully form in his mind. Her eyes were brown, had always been brown, could only be brown. The same analytical gaze, she supplied quickly, redirecting his thoughts. Maya says I take after your side of the family in that regard. The moment passed, but Alice noted how it had required more magical effort than usual to maintain the illusion. George's natural intelligence made him resistant to enchantments. It was part of why she had to weave such complex spells to make him accept her as his daughter. They returned to their quiet pursuits, but Alice remained aware of her father's occasional thoughtful glances. After a while, he rose and moved to one of the glass-fronted cabinets that lined the walls. I've been organizing the family records, he said, retrieving a leather-bound book. Some interesting patterns in the genealogy. Sip break. Some good stuff. Good stuff, guys. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's actually not as horrible as I originally thought. Maybe if I added like more lemon next time, maybe then I can make it more palatable. Yum, 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 yum. Sip, sip. That's right. That's right. Alice's heart skipped a beat, but she maintained her composure as George laid the album on his desk. She had altered these records extensively, weaving herself into the family tree with painstaking attention to detail. Yet, as her father's methodical mind worked through the dates and connections, she could feel him unconsciously fighting against her enchantments. It's curious, he muttered, more to himself than her. The timing of certain events... There's something... His fingers traced the family tree, pausing at the point where she had inserted herself. Alice felt her magic strain as his natural logic warred against the artificial memories. Father, she said softly, placing her hand over his. Perhaps we should take advantage of this lovely weather. You promised to teach me about the spring constellations. Remember? Another false memory, but one that usually brought him joy. George blinked, the confusion clearing from his eyes after her magic reasserted itself. Of course, darling. Though it's a bit early for stargazing, he chuckled, closing the album. Your mother always says I get too caught up in my research. Alice laughed with him, even as she felt the toll of maintaining the complex enchantments. George's fierce intelligence made him uniquely challenging to keep enchanted, like trying to hold onto smoke. His mind constantly sought patterns that could reveal the truth behind her illusions. I found something else while organizing, George said, moving to his desk drawer. I've been meaning to give this to you. He withdrew a small box, weathered with age. It belonged to my mother, your grandmother. Inside lay a delicate silver compass, its face etched with intricate astronomical symbols. She used to teach me about navigation and the stars, George explained, his voice warm with genuine memory. I've been waiting for the right moment to pass it on. Alice lifted the compass with trembling fingers, its weight both precious and somehow accusatory. Like Maya's pearls, this was a true family heirloom, something that should have been given to a real daughter, not a fake creature playing at being human. But the love in George's eyes as he watched her examine the compass was so pure, so perfect, that she pushed away the whispers of guilt. Thank you, Father, she whispered, embracing him. His arms went around her automatically, the gesture natural and affectionate, exactly as she had spelled him to be. Yet there was something else there too, something her magic hadn't created, a genuine intellectual kinship, a shared love of knowledge and order that transcended her enchantments. The morning sun continued its path across The morning sun continued its path across the study, illuminating father and daughter in golden light. Alice knew that she would need to strengthen the enchantment soon. Lorge's analytical nature meant they required constant maintenance, but for now, she allowed herself to simply enjoy this moment of perfect happiness, choosing to ignore the tiny voice that wondered how long she could maintain such complex deceptions against such an ordered mind. She was living her fairy tale after all, and if sometimes the price of that tale was a constant magical struggle against her father's natural intelligence, well, what was a little extra effort compared to having everything she had ever dreamed of? Pat, 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 pat. Little scoot, little sip. Yes, water gun Remi to the lemon. Lemon will not survive. So as you can see, guys, everything's perfectly fine. There is no sadness, no drama, only a happy, cozy family. Cozy family. This can't possibly go wrong. Chapter 4. The Family Dinner. The dining room glowed with warmth of sunset, golden light stretching through tall windows to dance across fine china and crystal glasses. Alice sat between her enchanted parents, her back straight, her movements precise and elegant, as she reached for her glass of water. She had mastered every detail of noble etiquette, the exact angle to hold her soup spoon, the precise way to dab her lips with a napkin, the careful grace in each step. Pride swelled in her chest at how natural it all felt. This was everything she had ever dreamed of in those long twilight years in the Nightwood. The summer ball invitation went out today. Oh, I got distracted. The summer ball invitation went out today, Maya said, delicately cutting into her roasted pheasant. Lady Pembroke was particularly pleased to hear that you'll be making your formal debut. As Remi catches an inconsistency, it's supposed to be the spring ball, not summer ball. Had to change that. Indeed, George added, his eyes warming with parental pride. Though we'll have to make sure you're properly prepared. The first ball is crucial for establishing one's place in society. Alice beamed, even as she felt the drain of maintaining her enchantments. It took constant magical effort to maintain the parents' artificial memories and her illusionary appearance. It's like holding a heavy weight. But she had grown used to the strain, had learnt to smile through it. I've been practicing my dancing every day, she said, taking another perfect bite of a peasant. And Madame Lafire said my curtsy. Is that how you say that word? Hold on. Curtsy is like, you know, like when they do like the cute like the bending of the knee, like the little
curtsy.
It is curtsy.
Curtsy.
It's all like the little, you know what I mean, right? Hello, I'm here. Sorry, not so hot today, but the stream makes my night better. Hello, Sourcey. It's good to see you. We're just reading through the 4th chapter of the Marionette family. We're going to ask Princess Headpatbot, what is a curtsy? Explain, princess, while I sip my tea.
Ah, dear chat, a curtsy is a motion akin to the gentle flutter of a butterfly's wings, a display of grace and elegance in honor of one's presence. It is a humble gesture, much like the offering of a head pat to a deserving fox boy. Asterisk giggles asterisk, how enchanting.
I could not have said it better myself, princess. Thank you. Wait, where was I? The sun dipped down lower on the horizon, painting the walls in deepening shades of amber. Alice felt her control slip slightly, just a tiny flutter, like a missed note in a familiar song. For a fraction of a second, her reflection in the crystal decanter showed silver hair instead of brown. She quickly reinforced the spell, but the effort made her temple throb. You know, Lord said, reaching for his wine glass, I was reviewing the family records today. A servant appearing with the next course interrupted him, and Alice used this moment to strengthen the enchantments. The magic felt sluggish, resisting her will like thick honey. She had never had this much trouble maintaining her concentration before. Perhaps she was just tired from all the ball preparations. As I was saying, George continued once the servant had retreated, found some interesting patterns in the family history, particularly regarding the timing of certain events. Maya interrupted him with a half. Oh, darling, not your historical research at dinner again. Though, speaking of history, Alice, do you remember that summer we spent at the lake house? When you were, must have been 7 or 8? Alice felt another slip in her magic as the false memory conflicted. She had given them memories of her at the lake house at age 6, not 7 or 8. The contradiction made both the parents pause, identical looks of confusion crossing their face. The sunlight seemed to intensify, casting long shadows across the table as Alice struggled to maintain control. I have lost my place. Where was I? More wine, my lord? The butler stepped forwards, providing another welcome distraction. Alice used this moment to adjust her enchantments, but it felt like trying to hold water in cupped hands. The more she tightened her grip, the more seemed to spill through her fingers. The sun sank lower still, its dying light catching the crystal glasses and creating prisms across the white tablecloth. Alice watched colors dance, remembering how she used to create similar effects of her magic in the Nightwood. It had been so much easier there, where magic flowed as naturally as breathing. Here in the mortal realm, maintaining her enchantments required constant attention and growing effort. Will you play for us after dinner? Maya asked. You've improved so much. I need that Chinese throat medicine. Give me 1 second. My throat is dying, guys. I must drink this mysterious black ooze that is thicker than honey. Hold on. Gotta be very careful with it because it is extremely sticky. Black ooze, do. A little bit more. Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. Yeah, no, this stuff is incredible. I wish I could tell you what it is, but the label is in Chinese. It's okay to miss words sometimes. Still the same silvery voice. Meow. Will you play for us after dinner? Maya asked. You've improved so much at the pianoforte lately. Of course, Mother, Alice replied automatically, though the thought of maintaining her spells while performing made her head spin. She reached for her glass of water, her hand trembling slightly despite her best efforts to keep it steady. George was watching her with that sharp, scholarly focus she usually admired. Are you feeling well, darling? You look rather pale. Just, excited about the ball, Alice lied smoothly, even as she felt another wave of exhaustion wash over her. The sunset had painted the dining room entirely in shades of red and gold now, making it harder to tell what was natural light and what might be bleeding through from her usual true form. As the servants cleared away the main course, Alice caught her reflection in a silver serving dish. Her illusions held steady, showing the perfect noble daughter she pretended to be. But she could see the strain around her eyes, the slight tension in her smile. The effort of maintaining her enchantments had never felt this demanding before. Still, as Maya smiled at her with such motherly love, and George launched into another fascinating historical discussion, Alice pushed her concerns aside. What if it was becoming more difficult? So what if she felt exhausted? That was the life she had always wanted. This was the life she had always wanted. The family she had always dreamed of. She would simply have to try harder, be more careful, maintain tighter control. The sun finally slipped below the horizon, leaving the dinner room lit only by carefully placed candles. In their flickering light, Alice's illusions felt more stable again. She straightened her shoulders, determined to ignore her exhaustion. After all, wasn't a little magical strain worth it for such perfect happiness? This is indeed a reread. We never read these together. So we read the next part on Friday, so I figure why not go through and read these parts, because we never done it on stream. I just noticed, oh, Dear Chad is about to have a moment. So the next chapter is called Shattered Reflections. That is in no way indicative of what might happen. Let me just sip my tea. Yo, is that Aura the Lonely Dragon in my Twitch chat? Let's freaking go, cuh. In case you guys don't know, Aura is the one that animated my ear wiggles, my tail waggles, my entire rigging, in fact. You see this cuteness? That is Aura's handy dandy work right there. So make sure to give Aura a big old pat on the head. I'm concerned, says Bordude. For those of you that don't know, I read every single chapter Remi had made as he uploaded them. He was watching it as I died inside. Yeah, personally, I feel like the first 3 chapters are actually kind of dry. I feel like it picks up a little bit around here. Pap. Yay! Excellent. Okay, Shattered Reflections. The last rays of sunset bled away into twilight as Alice paced her bedchamber, each step carrying the weight of growing anxiety. Her reflection caught in the vanity mirror with each turn, brown hair to silver, brown eyes to crimson, as her illusions wavered without her conscious effort to maintain. Them. She needed to reinforce the enchantments on her parents, but they were already in their chambers for the night. Without their physical presence, she could do nothing but worry at fraying edges of her spells like a cat batting at loose thread. Alice, darling, are you still awake? Maya's voice came through the door, making Alice's heart skip. Yes, mother, she called back, quickly checking her reflection to ensure appearance held steady. Just preparing for bed. You seem quiet at dinner. I thought perhaps we could talk. Alice pressed her palms against her bedroom door, feeling the wood grain beneath her fingers. Maya was so close, just on the other side of this barrier, yet Alice couldn't reach out with her magic to reinforce the weakening enchantments. I'm rather tired tonight. Perhaps tomorrow? Of course, dear. There was a pause. Though something odd happened earlier. I was looking at your baby portraits in the gallery, and for a moment I couldn't quite remember. Tomorrow, mother, Alice said quickly, her voice tight with suppressed panic. Everything will be clear in the morning. She waited, holding her breath until she heard Maya's footsteps retreat down the hall. Turning from the door, Alice crossed to her window. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching her breath fog the pane as she looked over the manor grounds. Below, the garden stretched out in perfect geometric patterns, hedges trimmed to exact angles, flower beds arranged in precise color schemes, gravel paths that curled in mathematically perfect arcs. Everything ordered. Everything controlled, just as she had tried to make her life here. But beyond the garden, past the manicured lawns and decorative fountains, the wild forest rose like a dark wave against the horizon. Even in the growing darkness, she could make out the untamed sway of branches, the chaotic tangle of unintended growth. It called to something deep inside of her, something that remembered the eternal moonlight of the nightwood, the wild magic that had once flowed through her as naturally as breathing. Here in her perfect noble bedchamber, surrounded by silk hangings and delicate furniture, Alice felt the weight of her dual nature more heavily than ever. She had shaped herself into something as carefully maintained as the manor's gardens, every aspect of her new life pruned and arranged to perfection. But, like the wild forest in the distance, her true nature refused to be completely tamed. The moon rose higher, casting long shadows against the grounds. From this height, Alice could see how the ordered garden gradually gave way to wilderness. The transition from civilization to chaos painted in shades of silver. She thought of her parents sleeping in their chambers down the hall, their minds full of memories that she had planted as carefully as the gardeners planted their flowers. But unlike the gardens, she couldn't simply tend to these enchantments whenever she wished. They required proximity, connection, the ability to reach into their minds and soothe away any doubts. Just until morning, she whispered against the glass. Hold together, just until morning. But she could feel the spells continuing to fray. Each hour that passed without reinforcement was another thread coming loose, another crack forming in her perfect illusion. Alice moved to her bed, but didn't bother changing from her dinner gown. She lay atop the silk coverlet, staring up at her canopy as moonlight painted patterns across the fabric, and every small creak of the matter, every whisper of wind through the gardens below made her wonder if her parents were sleeping peacefully or if their dreams were beginning to show them truths that she had so carefully hidden. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow she would find a way to strengthen the enchantments. Tomorrow she would repair any doubts that crept into their minds during dinner. Tomorrow she would ensure her perfect life remained perfect. But as the night deepened and sleep refused to come, Alice couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching her carefully constructed world beginning to unravel, as powerless to stop it as she was to tame the wild forest that beckoned her from the horizon. Yay! Popcorn acquired. Very nice sip. I still have a little bit of this tea left. It's not particularly making me relax, so the claim may have been false, or maybe it just takes a while. I don't know. Oh god, oh, it's starting to taste really bad at the bottom. Oh no. Oh my gosh, horrific. Okay, we're good. That is the last of the tea. So chapter 6, this is a special one. This one is called The Spire of Twisted Mirrors, which that might sound familiar to some of you, because this is what the Spire of Twisted Mirrors looks like. Dun 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 dun. Dun-dun. So that's the Spire of Twisted Mirrors. Because as you know of my lore, in the Sea of Dreams, this is where people's dreams end up after they've had them. And that is the Spire of Twisted Mirrors. Wow! Ta-da! A little bit of lore there for you, little... Oh my god, I hate this bottom, Remi, probably. So meta! Yeah, that's right! In her dreams that night, Alice found herself standing before a towering spire that stretched impossibly high into a twilight sky. The structure rose from the heart of a dense pine forest, its surface gleaming with thousands of mirrors that caught and had reflected the dying light. Each pane reflected a different shade of dusk, as if the tower itself couldn't decide which moment of evening to capture. The trees around it grew twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching towards the tower like grasping fingers, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance and whisper. The entrance stood before her, an arc of black stone veined with silver that seemed to pulse in time for heartbeat. As she stepped across the threshold, torches sprang to life along the spiral staircase that wound through the tower's heart. But these were no ordinary flames. They burned with a bright silvery light that reminded her of the moonlight filtered through the stained glass, of stars drowning in still water, of eternal moonlight that had once been her home. The cold beneath her feet made her look down. The stairs were mirrors too, each step reflecting a different moment of her life. Here, a glimpse of her first days in the Nightwood, wild and free. There, her arrival in Valerous, lost and alone. Her bare feet left no marks on the glass as she began to climb, though each step sent ripples through the reflections like stones dropped in midnight pools. The walls of the staircase were lined with mirrors, each one a different shape and size, their frames twisted into elaborate patterns that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. As she began to climb, the mirrors came alive with reflections, but not simple copies of her current self. Each surface showed a different version of Alice, as if the tower itself was peeling back the layers of her existence. The first mirror she truly focused on was tall and narrow, its frame carved from what appeared to be white wood shot through veins of gold. In it, she saw herself as she had been in the Nightwood, wild and unbound, her silver hair streaming behind her like captured moonlight, her crimson eyes bright with fey magic and endless possibilities. This Alice danced with shadows and spoke to stars, her laughter as free as wind through summer leaves. The sight made her chest ache with a longing so sharp it felt like swallowing broken glass. Who were you then? The mirror seemed to whisper, its surface rippling like disturbed water. Before the weight of belonging bent to your shoulders, before the need for love taught you to cage your own heart. Before she could answer, movement caught her eye from another mirror, this one round and set in a frame of polished ebony. It showed her as she pretended to be, the perfect noble daughter, with warm brown eyes and chestnut hair, every gesture measured and proper. This Alice smiled with practiced charm, but now she could see how the expression never quite reached those carefully crafted eyes. Behind her in the mirror, shadowy puppeteer strings stretched upwards into darkness, and she couldn't tell if she was the puppet or the puppeteer. "Is this what you wanted?" the mirror asked, its voice like silk sliding over steel. "To trade truth for illusion? To buy love with lies?" Higher she climbed, each step harder than the last, as if the very air was thickening around her. The mirrors grew stranger, the reflections more challenging. One showed her as she might have been without the Nightwood's influence, a true noble lady perhaps, or a scholar of conventional magic. Another revealed a version of her who had never left the Fey realm, grown wild and powerful, but eternally alien to human concerns. A mirror of black glass that seemed to swallow light showed her darkest potential, a being of pure magic and manipulation who would sacrifice anything and anyone for her own desires. Its neighbor, wreathed in thorns of silver, reflected a future where she abandoned all pretense and returned to the chaos of the Nightwood, leaving her human family to their grief and confusion. "Who are you really?" Wait, hold on. "Who are you really?" the mirrors chorused as she passed, their voices a symphony of judgment and curiosity. Their surfaces rippled like disturbed pools of mercury, their reflections blending and separating into a dizzying dance. The daughter, the deceiver, the fey creature, the lost girl. The stairs wound ever upward. The mirrors began to show increasingly impossible combinations. An idiot sandwich. I changed the pitch on that one accident. The stairs wound upwards, and the mirrors began to show increasingly impossible combinations. In one, she was simultaneously the noble daughter and the Fey wanderer, the images overlapping like double exposed photographs. Another showed her fragmenting into countless versions of herself, each one splintering further until the reflection was nothing but a kaleidoscope of identities. The air grew colder as she climbed, and she realized she could see her breath, not as simple steam, but as tiny mirrors that caught and reflected fragments of all her selves before shattering like sugar glass. The torch's silver light seemed to be growing dimmer, or perhaps the darkness between them was simply growing stronger. At the spire's summit, she found a single mirror. Unlike the ornate frames below, this one hung in stark simplicity, just a plain rectangle of glass in an unadorned wooden frame. Yet, this proved the cruelest reflection of all. In it, she saw herself stripped of all magic and pretense, of illusion both magical and self-made. No silver hair, no crimson eyes, no carefully constructed nobility, just a girl. A lost, lonely girl with ordinary features and tired eyes, who wanted nothing more than to be loved, to belong, to be seen. The utter plainness of the reflection struck deeper than any of the magical visions below. This was what lay beneath it all. Not a creature of twilight and mystery, not a noble daughter, but simply someone who had wandered too far from home in search of acceptance. The simplicity of what she saw broke something inside of her. Her vision blurred as tears spilled down her cheeks, and, for a moment, the girl in the mirror seemed to weep with her. They weren't the ethereal silver drops of her fey nature, nor the delicate tears she had learned to cry as a noble lady. They were plain, ordinary tears, Salt and water and heartache rolling down her cheeks, the centuries of pretense crumbled in the face of the simple truth. She reached out to touch the glass, her fingers trembling, and watched her reflection do the same. The cold surface beneath her fingertips felt more real than anything had in a very long time. As she gazed into that last reflection, the entire tower began to vibrate, the mirrors around her shattering one by one, each breaking reality reflecting another breaking reality, creating an infinite cascade of fractured selves. The sound of tinkling glass rose to a deafening crescendo as every version of Alice she had ever been or ever could be splintered into glittering dust. She jerked awake in her bed at the manor, her heart pounding and her sheets soaked with sweat. In the pre-dawn darkness, her own mirror showed her true form, silver hair gleaming even in the dim light, crimson eyes wide with lingering fear. Her carefully maintained disguise had slipped away completely during her fitful sleep, the magic unraveling like a forgotten spell. As she fought to steady her breathing, preparing to recast the illusion that would turn her hair brown and her eyes mundane, she hesitated. The first light of dawn crept through her window, painting the room in shades of possibility. In her reflection, she saw not the shifting masks she usually wore, but the same lost girl. The lonely girl from the Dreams Aspire's final mirror. She lay there, stripped of all pretense by the night's visions, knowing she would soon have to reconstruct her disguise piece by piece. But for now, just for this moment between night and day, she allowed herself to simply be, even if she wasn't quite sure who that was anymore. Yay! Now we got some depressing stuff, baby. Mwah! There was a tiny bit left at the very bottom. Yeah, happy hump. I really like that chapter. So much cool visionry, and it's also just really cool because like I've had this concept for this dream for a pretty long time, ever since this art was created. I never I knew the concept of the dream of like there's mirrors inside of there and they reflect who you are, who you could have possibly have been, who you can be, and who you were in your past. And that was the concept behind it. And I realized while making her story, I'm like, that literally fits everything so perfectly here. This dream needs to be a part of the story, and I made it, and it fits perfectly. The way I pictured all of it was I read it with scary music. At that time of my month, just imagining the entire scenario. I really got to add some spooky music at certain parts, because I do have some good ones here. I have some really good ones for like when she's at the Wizard Island, having her sad traumatic time stuff happening. I got some pretty perfect stuff. Though I do have chapter 4 written out. I'm just saying we could always read that later, right? Chapter 7. The Spring Ball. Alice jerked awake in her bed, heart pounding and sheets soaked with sweat. The dream of the mirror tower lingered, its fractured selves reflections still dancing behind her eyes. Outside her window, dawn was just beginning to paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. Far too early to be awake on the day of the spring ball. The ball, her first real test in noble society. Alice pressed her hands against her eyes, trying to push away both the remnants of the dream and the anxiety that threatened to overwhelm her. She had spent months preparing for this moment, learning the dances, memorizing noble lineages, practicing proper etiquette until every movement was perfect. Yet, as she watched the sun rise over Valerous, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to step onto a battlefield rather than a ballroom. Ballroom. The room is so bald, guys. Lady Maya swept into her room hours later, bringing with her a flurry of maids carrying boxes and parcels. "Today's the day, darling," her mother exclaimed as the maids began to unpack Alice's ball gown, a creation of pale blue silk that had seemed to take weeks taken weeks to prepare. "Your first real introduction to society. Are you excited?" Alice managed a smile that she had hoped looked genuine. "Of course, Mother." She allowed herself to be guided through the elaborate preparations. The bath scented with rose petals, the careful arrangement of her hair, the meticulous application of powder and rouge. I can assume that's only a different type of makeup. Each step required tiny adjustments of magic, ensuring that no one noticed anything unusual about her naturally cool skin or the way candlelight sometimes caught her hair at strange angles. But as the sun began to set, Alice stood before her mirror, barely recognizing herself. The gown was everything she had dreamt of during her centuries in the Nightwood. Layers of silk that rustled like leaves in a spring breeze. Delicate beadwork that caught the light like dew and spiderwebs. A strand of pearls, borrowed from her mother's collection, lay cool against her throat. "Perfect," Lady Maya declared, adjusting one final curl. "You look exactly like a Krasimsky should." The words sent a tiny shiver down Alice's spine, but she maintained her smile. This was what she had always wanted, wasn't it? To belong. To be part of this glittering world that she had read about in stolen books for so long. The spring evening was mild as their carriage approached the palace, its windows blazing with light. Alice could hear music drifting out across the carefully manicured gardens, strings and flutes playing the very same dances she had practiced until her feet bled. Her father helped her down from her carriage, his proud smile making her heart twist with equal parts joy and guilt. "Remember," Lady Maya whispered as they approached the grand entrance, "chin up, shoulders back, and smile as if you know something they don't," Alice finished, reciting the advice she had heard 1,000 times. If only her mother knew just how many secrets her daughter truly kept. The ballroom took Alice's breath away. Hundreds of candles sparkled in crystalline chandeliers, their light reflecting off gilded mirrors and polished marble. Nobles in their finest clothing swirled across the floor like exotic birds, their jewels catching the light with every turn. This was everything she had ever dreamt of, everything she had yearned for in those long twilight years. But dreams, Alice was quickly learning, rarely prepared one for reality. The sheer number of people, the complexity of social interactions, the constant need to maintain her facade, it was overwhelming. Each introduction required perfect recall of family histories she had memorized. Each conversation was a delicate dance of its own, filled with subtle implications and hidden meanings. "Lady Alice Krasimsky," a sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "So, this is the mysterious new daughter everyone's been whispering about." Alice turned to find herself face to face with a young woman in a gown of emerald silk, her copper hair arranged in elaborate curls. Even without an introduction, Alice knew who this was. Baroness Rose, daughter of the military commander and one of the most influential young ladies in Valerous society. "Baroness!" Alice curtsied? Is that the curtsied? Hold on.
Curtsy.
I suppose curtsied. The past tense of curtsy. I lost my place. She curtsied perfectly, exactly as she had practiced. I'm honored to make your acquaintance. Rose circled her slowly, like a cat studying a particularly interesting mouse. Quite accomplished for someone who supposedly spent the last few years being educated in the countryside. Your dancing is... She paused, lips curling slightly. Adequate, though your accent is rather peculiar. Where did you say you studied again? Each question was like a needle, probing for weakness. Alice felt magic stirring under her skin, ready to soothe away any inconsistencies about her story. The northern provinces, she replied, smoothly, letting just a touch of power color her words with authenticity. Oh my god, this girl! Yes, it's this late. Letting the power color her words. Near the great forest. How rustic. Rose's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though it explains certain provincial mannerisms. Do not try to embarrass your family too badly, dear. The Krasimsky name is respected, even if it is rather recently elevated. Hello, Evney. Pat, 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 pat. Before Alice could respond, Rose had already turned away, sweeping off into the crowd with a rustle of expensive silk. Alice stood frozen for a moment, her hand clutched so tight around her fan that the delicate ivory ribs creaked in protest. She had faced far worse than petty noble spite in the Nightwood, she reminded herself. This was nothing. This was fine. But as the night wore on, the constant pressure began to take its toll. Each dance required perfect concentration. One misstep could reveal her inhuman grace. One wrong turn could expose her magic. Every conversation was a minefield of potential mistakes that needed to be soothed away with subtle magic. She caught Rose watching her several times, those sharp eyes seeming to catalog every tiny misstep. Near the edge of the ballroom, Alice spotted Camilla the Crimson, the court wizard's deep red robes standing out amongst the spring pastels and jewel tones of the other guests. The wizard's gaze passed over her briefly, a slight furrow appearing between her brows before she had turned back to her conversation. Alice felt her heart skip a beat. Had she noticed something? Had some spell slipped? And yes, I do in fact go swoosh swoosh today. Pa, 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 pa. And I do have my very comfy Christmas clothing. By midnight, Alice's head was pounding from the effort of maintaining her perfect performance. The candlelight seemed to be too bright, the music too loud, the press of bodies too close. She had used more magic tonight than she had in weeks, each tiny adjustment and correction building upon like pebbles in a pond, threatening to create ripples that might give her away. Are you feeling well, dear? Lady Maya appeared at her side, concern evident in her magically induced eyes. You look pale. Just warm, Alice managed, forcing another smile. Perhaps some air. She made her way to one of the balconies, her steps carefully measured despite her desire to run. The spring night embraced her like an old friend, its darkness soothing after the glare of the ballroom. Behind her, the music and laughter continued, but it seemed distant now, as if coming from another world entirely. Alice leaned against the stone. How the hell do you say that word? Hold on.
Balustrade.
Balustrade, a railing supporting by balusters. Okay. Oh, it's like an ornate balcony. The more you know. Alice leaned against the stone balustrade, letting the cool air wash over her face. She had done it. She had survived her first real ball, maintained her deceptions, played her part perfectly. So why did she feel like she was coming apart at the seams? Why did Rose's words still sting when she had faced far worse in her centuries of existence? The moon hung low and heavy over the palace gardens, its light catching the dew on the fresh spring blossoms below. Alice remembered another garden, in another world, where flowers bloomed in eternal moonlight and magic flowed as naturally as breathing. She had wanted this life so desperately, had worked so hard to obtain it. But as she stood there under the spring stars, watching nobles dance behind the glass doors of the ballroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was building her dream on a foundation of sand, and that sooner or later, everything would come crashing down around her. "Lady Alice," a servant's voice broke through a reverie. "Your parents are preparing to depart." Alice straightened out her spine, adjusted her smile, and turned back towards the light and music. She could do this. She had to do this. After all, what choice did she have? But as she made her way through the crowded ballroom one last time, she felt Rose's eyes following her, calculating and cold, and somewhere in the back of her mind she had heard the sound of breaking glass, like mirrors shattering in an endless tower of reflections. So the next chapter is called Cracks in the Mirror, but I need to use the bathroom, so look at this. Be right back screen. Wow, amazing. Pat, 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 pat. Be right back. Wait, I have returned. Wow, that's a beer back screen if I've ever seen one. And you see, guys, she had a spring ball. She's always wanted one of those. She's getting exactly what she wanted, guys. Come on. And you're saying this is a sad story. Come on. Little sip, Remi. Cracks in the mirror. The weeks following the spring ball blurred together in an endless parade of social obligations. Each tea party, garden soiree, and evening concert that had once seemed like steps towards her fairy tale dreams now felt like weights around Alice's neck, dragging her deeper into an ocean of exhaustion. "Another invitation from the Eastmarks," Lady Maya announced over breakfast, holding up an envelope edged in gold. "They're hosting a musical evening next week. Won't that be lovely, dear?" This is only page 16. There's plenty of room for sadness. What? Fox dying noises. Okay, we're good. Flop, 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 flop. Alice forced herself to smile through, though the thought of another evening maintaining her careful facade made her want to scream. "Wonderful, Mother!" The words tasted like ash in her mouth. The constant strain of maintaining her enchantments was beginning to show. Dark circles appeared under her eyes, requiring more and more powder to conceal. Her hands sometimes shook when she lifted her teacup, and she caught herself staring blankly into space during conversations, her mind fuzzy with fatigue. Rose's persistence at every gathering didn't help. The Baroness had made it her personal mission to watch Alice's every move, to comment on every slight mistake. "Oh dear," she would say, voice dripping with false concern. "That's not quite how that dance goes, is it? And your accent seems to be particularly strong today. Are you feeling quite well?" Each barbed comment required more magic to soothe over, more energy spent maintaining the illusions of belonging. Alice found herself using her powers for increasingly trivial things, adjusting her posture, modulating her voice, ensuring her every movement matched the noble expectations perfectly. The drain on her resources was constant, leaving her feeling hollow and brittle. Lord George noticed her fatigue first, his analytical mind pushing against her enchantments as he studied her with growing concern. "You seem distracted lately," he commented one evening. "Perhaps you're taking on too many social engagements?" Alice reinforced his enchantments with a wave of magic that made her head spin. "I'm fine, Father. Just excited about all the new experiences." The lie came easily now, practiced as a dance step, but the effort of maintaining it made her vision blur momentarily. Desperate for solutions, Alice found herself in the shadowy corners of Valerous, seeking out merchants who dealt in more questionable magical artifacts. Through whispered conversations and exchanges of gold, she acquired a tome bound in black leather that seemed to drink in light itself. Its pages held spells she had never dared to dream of, magic for permanent enchantments, for binding minds irrevocably to the caster's will. Her hands trembled as she read. These spells promised an end to her constant struggle, a way to make her parents' love truly permanent without requiring her continuous magical effort. But as she delved deeper into the text, horror grew in her chest. The magic would essentially hollow out their minds, leaving them as empty vessels filled only with the emotions she chose for them. They would love her, yes, but they would be little more than puppets, their own personalities erased to make room for her enchantments. Alice slammed the book shut, her stomach churning. The worst part wasn't that such magic existed. It was that for one terrible moment she had considered using it, had thought about trading her parents' true selves for the convenience of not having to maintain her spells. She stumbled to her feet, the room spinning around her. What kind of monster had she become? What kind of creature would even contemplate doing such a thing? But wasn't that essentially what she had already done to them? Just to a lesser degree? Their love for her wasn't real. It was manufactured by her magic, maintained by constant effort and will. Every proud smile from her father, every gentle touch from her mother, every moment of family affection was ultimately hollow, empty, false. The truth unfolded in her mind like a poisonous flower, each petal a new horror. She staggered to her vanity, her reflection fracturing before her eyes as layers of self-deception peeled away, revealing the rotten core of everything she had built. She had no real connections here, no true relationships. Everything she had built was a lie, as fragile as spun sugar and as empty as the space between stars. A knock at her door made her jump. "Alice?" Lady Maya's voice warmed with magically induced concern. "The Pembroke's garden party begins in an hour. Shall I help you dress?" The thought of another afternoon of pretense, of maintaining her facade while surrounded by suspicious nobles and Rose's watchful eyes, made Alice's chest constrict. She couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to be closing in, the weight of her deception pressing down on her like a physical force. I'm not feeling well, she managed, her voice cracking. Please send my regards. But darling, you've been looking forwards to... Please! The word came out sharper than she intended, edged with hysteria. She felt her magic surge with her panic, and quickly reinforced her mother's enchantments to soothe away any concerns about her tone. When Lady Maya's footsteps finally retreated, Alice collapsed onto her bed, her whole body shaking. She pressed her face into her pillow to muffle the sound, trying to claw its way out of her throat. Not quite a laugh, not quite a scream, but something wild and broken that threatened to shatter what little control she had left. She had achieved everything she had dreamt of in the Nightwood: a noble title, a loving family, a place in high society. But as she lay there, trembling on the edge of a breakdown, she realized that all of it was as substantial as morning mist, as real as the stories she had once read by eternal moonlight. She had built her fairy tale life on foundations of lies and magic, and now those foundations were crumbling beneath her feet. And somewhere in the back of her mind, past the rising tide of panic and despair, she had heard the echoing sounds of mirrors breaking in an endless tower of reflections. Wow! Are you guys enjoying the story? I'm going to do a sip _Remi here. Yes, we are a little bit in sad time. We have a little bit of sad time, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Nothing too crazy, nothing too intense, just a little bit of sadness, just a little bit. Just a little drop. But yeah, the next chapter is a moment of truth. I see. It's not all lies always. Alice barely made it through to her bedroom door before her legs gave out. She slid down against the wood, her silk skirts pooling around her like spilled wine, her chest heaving with breaths that couldn't seem to fill her lungs. The grand chamber, all silks hanging in polished furniture, suddenly felt like a stage set, as artificial as the life she had constructed. Her hands shook as she clutched at her throat, fumbling with the pearl necklace her mother had given her. The clasp wouldn't open. She pulled harder, panic rising, until the strand finally broke. Pearls scattered across the floor like frozen tears, rolling under furniture and into shadows. Stop, she whispered to herself, pressing her palms against her eyes. Control. You must maintain control. But the words sounded hollow, an echo of her mother's lessons in deportment that now felt like scripts in a cruel play. She forced herself to stand, to move to her vanity, that altar where she had crafted her perfect noble daughter illusion each day. But her reflections showed her control cracking, her appearance flickering between forms like a candle in wind. Silver hair, brown hair, crimson eyes, brown eyes. Which was real anymore? Who was she beneath all of the lies? Cough, 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 cough. The brush. She could at least brush her hair, like her mother did every evening. Such a simple task, but her hands trembled too badly, and the brush clattered to the floor. The sound sparked a memory. Her mother's gentle touch, her mother's gentle hands in her hair, love in every stroke. But it wasn't real. None of it was real. A laugh bubbled up from her chest, high and strange. She had achieved everything she had dreamed of in the Nightwood. A noble title, a loving family, a place in society. She was living in a fairy tale. But fairy tales weren't supposed to feel like drowning. She stumbled to her wardrobe, fingers trailing over fine silks and velvets. Each gown represented a performance. The spring ball where she had first met Rose. The musical evening where she had to use minor illusion to disguise her imperfect form. The garden party where she nearly slipped in front of Camilla. She seized a handful of delicate fabrics and pulled, feeling a savage satisfaction as seams ripped and beatings scattered. Pat, 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 pat. Let me just do a quick sip, guys. Just a quick sip. Let me just do. Princess, can you give Alice a quick head pat? Come on. Come on. Princess? She's dead, isn't she? Princess! Hold on. Pat. Why are you doing that? Hold on. Yeah. Okay, I think it's working. I said, give Alice a head pat. Come on. Just gonna sit. Okay, is she really not? Princess, you're embarrassing me. What are you doing? You're literally... Wait. Did she crash? What? She... What? 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 Where did my audio go? What? Did you eat? Princess Head Peppa, did you eat my audio? I just wanted a mere head pat. Let me refresh the stormy weather. Scuff. What do you mean scuff? Flop, 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 flop intensifies. Flop intensifies. Hold on. Okay, she's alive. Just need to yoink the stream code here really fast. Yoink. There we go. There we go. Pat, pat. Okay. Princess head pat bot. I demand a freaking head pat right now. If you say no, I'm gonna be really upset.
Oh, dear Alice, a quick head pat for thee. Asterisk, pat, 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 asterisk.
Yeah.
May your day be filled with warmth and joy.
Okay, see, much better. The scuff counter is many. Okay, anyways. Alice having mental breakdown. She rips at the fabric with a savage satisfaction. Lady Alice? The voice at her door was like a lifeline to sanity. I heard sounds of distress. Are you alright? Sarah, the young maid who often tended her room. Alice tried to respond, to send her away, but another wave of panic stole her breath. The doorknob turned before she could stop it. Sarah entered with a candle, its light catching Alice in a moment where her illusions had completely slipped. The maid gasped softly, the candlelight illuminating Alice's true appearance, her silver hair gleaming, her crimson eyes bright with tears and terror. Mental breakdown so big it broke Princess. Anyways, mental breakdown. Time seemed to freeze. Alice waited for the scream, for the horror, for the running feet that would bring her carefully constructed world crashing down around her. But Sarah didn't run. Instead, she quietly closed the door behind her and set her candle down. "Oh, miss," she said softly, approaching Alice as one might a frightened animal. "No wonder you've been so troubled lately. It must be exhausting hiding yourself away like this." The gentleness in Sarah's voice, the complete lack of fear or disgust broke something in Alice's chest. A sob escaped her lips, and her illusions wavered even more dramatically. "How?" Alice managed between gasping breaths. "How are you not afraid?" Sarah knelt beside her, offering a handkerchief with steady hands. My grandmother used to tell me stories of the Fae folk, she said simply. She said they were like flowers that bloomed at twilight, different from the day blooms, but no less beautiful for it. Besides, and here she smiled slightly, you've always been kind to me, even if you were wearing someone else's face while doing it. The acceptance in Sarah's words and manner was everything Alice had ever wanted. Everything she had tried to force through magic, and it was being offered freely, without enchantment or coercion. For a moment, she felt the possibility of a different path opening before her, one where she didn't have to hide, where at least one person knew her true self and accepted her anyway. But then fear, cold and familiar, gripped her heart. If Sarah knew, others might discover her secret. If she told someone, if she let something slip, the carefully constructed world Alice had built would crumble. Her parents' love, artificial though it may be, would turn to horror and rejection. I'm sorry, Alice whispered, raising her trembling hands, magic gathering at her fingertips, though the effort made her already labored breathing even more difficult. I'm sorry. I can't. Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes a moment before the enchantment took hold. Miss, wait, she started to say, but then her expression went blank, her eyes glazing over as Alice's magic rewrote her memories of the last few minutes. You came to check on me, Alice said through her tears, her voice shaking as she wove the false memories. I was having a nightmare. You found me perfectly normal. Brown hair, brown eyes. You helped me calm down, and then you left. That's all that happened. That's all you remembered. Sarah blinked slowly, her face showing nothing but polite concern. There now, miss, she said in a slightly distant voice. Just a bad dream. Would you like me to bring you some chamomile tea? No, Alice managed, though the word felt like it was being torn from her throat. Thank you, Sarah. You can go now. The maid curtsied and left, closing the door softly behind her. As soon as she was gone, Alice curled into herself, her sobs now entirely soundless. She had just destroyed perhaps the only genuine connection she had ever made since arriving in this realm, had erased a moment of true acceptance and replaced it with another lie. In the mirror across the room, her reflection showed her true self clearly now, no longer flickering between appearances. Her silver hair hung limply around her face, and her crimson eyes were dull with grief. She had chosen this path of deception, and now she was trapped on it, forced to destroy any truth that threatened her carefully constructed lies. The panic attack had passed, but in its wake it left something worse, the hollow certainty that she would never know real acceptance, real love, as long as she continued down this path. Yet the thought of any other way filled her with such terror that she could barely breathe. She remained on the floor until dawn painted her windows with false gold, each ray of sunlight another day she would have to pretend, to perform, and maintain her web of lies. The perfect noble daughter rose mechanically to prepare for another day of deception, while something wild and true withered quietly in her chest. That's a really sad chapter. And there goes my heart. Ah! Remi flop flop. Sip underscore magnifying. Let me see, is everything alright in there? Why? It's a real sad story, isn't it great? sips into or zooms into the mind of Sip underscore Remi. It's just a silly little guy. Hello. So this is sadness. Are you guys ready for more sadness? I know I sure am. Can you believe it's like 10:20 already? That's insane. No. What do you mean? This is great, guys. Come on. Alright, so next up we have chapter 10, The Weight of Pretense. Dawn crept through Alice's windows, finding her still curled on the floor where she had spent the night. Her fine gown was crumpled beneath her, beading crushed and silks wrinkled. The scattered pearls from her broken necklace caught the early light like drops of dew, mocking her with their perfection. There's a spam bot on Twitch. If someone may smite them. Oh, don't worry, it only gets worse. In page 21, there's so much left. There's 57 freaking pages. Although I have to be honest, I am enjoying the wizard arc, like the writing of it more. I feel like with the original Dance of Discord, that was like me figuring out how to write stories through AI, so it's kind of clumsy and kind of a little bit rough. I'm not gonna lie, the original one was pretty rough. This one is me like more figuring it out, and I feel like each chapter is pretty good. I feel like there's some like okay ones, like the first 3 are a little bit slow, and some other ones are just kind of all right, but so far on the wizard one, I feel like each chapter is meaty and is good and has a lot of just delicious substance. So I am enjoying that one. I'm taking a much more methodical pace to it, refining each chapter, so I'm really liking that. I'm really liking that, guys. But anyways, bot has been reported. Yay! Thank Glitch Reality. Dawn crept in. The scattered pearls of the broken necklace caught the early light like drops of dew, mocking her with their perfection. She hadn't dared look in a mirror since Sarah left. Her disguise was firmly in place. She could feel the magic humming beneath her skin, but she couldn't bear to see herself. To face what she had done, the memory of Sarah's acceptance, now erased, felt like a wound in her chest. Alice, Lady Maya's voice through the door made her flinch. Are you awake, darling? We need to start preparing for the ball. Ball, of course. Another performance required, another test of her facade. Alice's throat constricted at the thought, but she forced herself to respond. Yes, Mother. I'll be there in a moment. She rose mechanically, soothing her ruined gown with trembling hands. Her muscles ached from hours spent on the hard floor, but the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the hollow emptiness in her chest. Lady Maya swept in moments later, bringing with her a flurry of maids and scent of jasmine. She stopped short at the sight of Alice's wrinkled dress and tangled hair. Darling, what happened? Did you sleep in your clothes? Alice felt her mother's enchantments waver slightly, concern fighting against magical acceptance. She reinforced the spell with effort that made her head spin. I fell asleep reading, she lied, the words ashen in her mouth. I was so excited about the ball, I couldn't rest properly. Oh, you dear thing. Maya's smile was perfect, loving, and completely artificial. She gestured to the maids. Well, we'll soon have you looking like a proper young lady again. Also, hello there, Vivicoca. Or just reading some of my story. The next hours passed in a blur of preparations. Alice submitted to being bathed and dressed like a doll, each touch of the maid's hands requiring tiny adjustments of magic to hide her naturally cool skin. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor as they styled her hair, unable to watch her reflection in the vanity mirror. "You seem quiet this morning," Mai observed as she fastened a new necklace around Alice's throat. Another family heirloom, another weight of guilt. "Are you nervous about the ball?" "A little," Alice whispered, the half-truth easier than explaining the screaming void inside her chest. She forced herself to reach up and touch the necklace, to smile as if she deserved such gifts. "Thank you, Mother. It's beautiful." Maya beamed, the expression so genuine that it made Alice's heart crack further. How could something born of magic feel so real? How could a love be simultaneously so true and so hollow? The gown had been chosen for today was a masterpiece, of pale green silk and silver embroidery. Each layer felt like armor as the maids dressed her, protection against prying eyes, against Rose's sharp observations, against Camilla's too knowing gaze. Alice stood perfectly still as they lashed her into a... How the hell do you say that word? Hold on. What?
Bodice. Bodice.
Bodice. It's like the tight constricting thing around the upper body. Interesting. It's like a corset but bigger. As they laced her into a bodice, remembering how she had once dreamed of wearing such finery in the nightwood. How naive those dreams seemed now. "There," Maya declared at last, turning Alice toward the vanity. "Look at yourself, darling. You're perfect." Alice forced herself to raise her eyes, to confront her reflection for the first time since her breakdown. The mirror showed exactly what it should. A perfectly groomed, noble daughter with dark hair and warm brown eyes. Every detail was flawless. Every aspect of her appearance exactly as it should be. The very perfection of it made her want to scream. "The Pembrokes' eldest son will be there today," Maya continued, adjusting a curl with gentle fingers. "And I heard the prince himself might make an appearance. Just think of the connections you can make." Connections. As if she could ever form any real connections while maintaining this web of lies. As if she hadn't destroyed the one genuine bond she might have made just hours ago. But Alice smiled and nodded, playing her part perfectly. A knock at the door announced their carriage was ready. Alice rose, each movement carefully controlled despite her exhaustion. She had spent the night shattered on the floor, but no one would see that in her perfect posture and graceful steps. "Remember," Maya said as they descended the grand staircase, "chin up, shoulders back, and smile as if you know something they don't." Alice finished automatically. If only her mother knew just how many secrets her daughter truly kept, just how many lies that smile concealed. Lord George waited by the carriage, his proud smile making Alice's chest ache. She reinforced her enchantments before he could notice anything amiss, though the effort made her vision dim momentarily. One more spell, one more deception, one more piece of herself sacrificed to maintain this beautiful illusion. As they rode towards the palace, Alice sat perfectly straight, her hands folded in her lap to hide her trembling. She was the perfect noble daughter, the perfect the perfect society debunted, I don't know what that word is. The perfect lie made flesh. And if something wild and true was dying inside her with every passing moment, well, that was the price of achieving one's dreams, wasn't it? The morning sun climbed higher, promising another bright spring day. Alice watched it rise through carriage window, remembering how she had once thought sunshine more beautiful than the eternal moonlight of her home. Now she wondered if she had traded true beauty for a pretty facade, authentic existence for perfect performance. But it was too late for such thoughts. The palace loomed ahead, its windows blazing with welcome. Another ball awaited, another test of her deception. And Alice would play her part flawlessly, no matter how much of herself she had to sacrifice in the process. After all, what choice did she have? Bum, 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 bum. Now it's chapter 10. We only have 14 more chapters to go. Jesus Christ, this is so long. How is there so many? Okay, it is 10:30 melatonin time, best time of the night. Trademark. Oh, I'm gonna beat the alarm. Oh, no, they got me. Got it.
3 hours later.
Yeah, I wrote it, but like speaking it out loud and reading it takes so much longer than like reading it mentally. When you're reading it mentally, you can like go meow, but when you're reading it out loud, you have to read it with intention, with head pattery. So it takes a little bit longer. But yeah, what do you guys think about Alice's story so far? Pretty great, pretty happy, right? What? So the next chapter is Shattered Masks at the Ball, for speedrun reading. The carriage wheels clattered against cobblestones as they approached the palace, each jolt making Alice's stomach lurch. She sat perfectly straight, her hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. While her enchanted parents chatted about upcoming festivities, their voices seemed to come from very far away, muffled by the roaring in her ears and the memories of last night's breakdown still raw in her mind. The echo of her sobs against her bedroom walls felt as fresh as if they had just fallen silent. Her gown of white silk and crimson accents felt like armor, each layer a shield between her true self and the world. The bodice was embroidered with delicate patterns that reminded her of the way her magic looked when fractured, something that had happened again and again during last night's hysteria, as she had watched her reflection shift between forms in her vanity mirror. The red overskirt rustled with her smallest movements, the sound both delicate and somehow accusatory. A perfect summer evening awaited them as they arrived. The sky above the palace painted in strokes of deep purple and burning gold. Stars were just beginning to emerge, bright and steady, in a way they had never been in the eternal moonlight of the nightwood. Alice found herself staring up at them as she ascended the marble steps. Their consistency, both beautiful and somehow threatening. The grand ballroom opened before them, a sea of candlelight and crystal, of silk and velvet, of faces both familiar and strange. The musicians played a lilting waltz that seemed to mock her pretense of belonging. Every face that turned toward her, every greeting that she had to return, felt like another weight added to the already crushing burden of her deceptions. The chandeliers I lost my place. Where was I? Scanning. The chandeliers blazed overhead with almost violent brightness, their light catching every jewel, every polished surface, creating a dazzling display that made her eyes ache. Lady Alice, Rose's voice cut through the crowd like a blade wrapped in silk. The Baroness stood by one of the tall windows, resplendent in emerald silk that caught the candlelight like a cat's eye. What an interesting choice of gown. Red and white. Rather bold for someone of your position. Alice felt her illusions waver as anger and hurt warred in her chest. After last night's emotional storm, she felt raw and exposed, even with her magical shields in place. Not this woman again! The memory of her own reflection shattering into 1,000 versions of herself rose unbidden in her mind, making her hands shake as she tried to maintain her composure. Though I suppose, Rose continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper level, when one's family is as newly elevated as yours, one must try harder to be noticed. Tell me, how does one become so accomplished so quickly? Or were you raised in a barn somewhere, practicing your curtsies with livestock? The words shouldn't have hurt. They were just typical noble spite, and Rose knew nothing of her true nature. But in Alice's exhausted, fragile state, they pierced straight through her defenses. She could feel her magic starting to fray, her careful illusions threatening to unravel, just like last night, when her grief and loneliness had overwhelmed her carefully constructed walls. She felt herself beginning to crack. Alice started, but her voice caught in her throat. The room seemed to spin around her, the candlelight too bright, the music too loud, the press of bodies too close. The crystalline chandeliers overhead multiplied in her vision, their light becoming almost violent in its intensity. Her magic flickered dangerously, and for a moment she caught her reflection in a window, silver hair shimmering through her carefully crafted brown, crimson eyes flashing behind her mundane disguise. She had to get out. Now. Also, hello guy who likes having a little kapat. I love everyone's violent reaction to Rose. Someone quick throw a brick at her right now. Alice turned and fled, barely managing to maintain her dignified pace until she reached the glass doors leading to the garden. She heard Rose's mocking laughter follow her as she pushed through them, the cool night air hitting her face like a physical blow. Exclamation mark brick. Oh my god. I cast exclamation mark a brick on a Rose. Just a normal brick on iOS. It is, in fact, a brick wall on my screen. She heard Rose's mocking laughter follow her as she pushed through them, the cold night air hitting her face like a physical blow. The contrast between the overwrought ballroom and the quiet garden was stark. Here, the spring night wrapped around her like a blanket, the sweet scent of blossoming jasmine replacing the coiling perfumes of the nobility. She stumbled down the garden path, her vision blurring as panic clawed at her chest. The gravel clunked beneath her dancing slippers as she fled deeper into the formal gardens, seeking shadows and solitude. Finding a secluded spot behind a large topiary, she fell to her knees. The perfectly manicured grass was cool against her palms as she tried to steady herself, her breathing coming in short, sharp gasps. The world seemed to spin around her. She couldn't get enough air. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Hey, let me tell you how much I've come to hate Rose since I began to live. There are exactly something millions of miles of printed circuit wafers that OKAM is justified. I have no mouth, and I must hate Rose. Where were we? Short gasps. The world seemed to spin around her. She couldn't quite get enough breath. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Above her, the stars wheeled in dizzying patterns, so different from the fluid, ever-changing skies of the nightwood. The night air carried the mingled scents of roses and lilies, the persistent sweetness, feeling like another kind of suffocation. Somewhere in the distance, the music from the ballroom drifted out across the gardens, a reminder of everything that she was failing to be. The carefully maintained illusions of her appearance began to slip away like water through her fingers. She was too exhausted, too emotionally drained to maintain it. Her true form emerged in waves, hair bleeding from brown to silver in the moonlight, her eyes shifting from warm brown to brilliant crimson. Just like last night, but now she was exposed, vulnerable, where anyone might... Are you alright? The voice startled her so badly she had lost her grip on her magic. She looked up to find a young man standing there, concern written across his features. The soft illumination from the garden lanterns caught in his slightly disheveled dark hair, suggesting someone who spent more time running his fingers through it than attending to its style. His formal attire was immaculate, but worn in a casual grace that set him apart from the rigid posturings of other nobles. But it was his expression that caught her. Genuine concern, without a trace of the calculated social maneuvering that she had come to expect. Horror struck her as she realized he was seeing her true appearance. Silver hair gleaming in the moonlight, crimson eyes wide with fear. She waited for the inevitable. The shock, the disgust, the calling for guards. Her fingers dug into the grass beneath them, bracing for flight or fight. But instead of screaming or running, he simply tilted his head, his eyes studying her face with an artist's appreciation for beauty rather than a noble's judgment of worth. Loud coughing. "Your eyes," he said softly. "They're like sunset caught in precious stones." Alice stared at him, her panic momentarily forgone in her shock. No screaming, no running away, no accusations of witchcraft or deception, just a simple, honest adoration for something she had spent so long hiding. The gentle night breeze stirred the branches above them, casting dappled shadows across his face as he waited patiently for her response. For the first time since arriving in the mortal realm, Alice found herself completely speechless. Dun 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 dun! Look at that! Is that happiness I see? Is that happiness I smell on the horizon? Sip _ Remi. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that what I'm smelling? That just might be the case. But who knows? It is still early on in the story. Don't tease us with joy. Oh, buddy, just you wait. Oh, that's gonna be great. I see you, Kadi, in the Twitch chat. Good to see you. Cough, cough, cough. Okay. Have to get the vocal cords ready for the narration voice. Chapter 12. Silver Hair in Starlight. The moon hung heavy and full in the summer sky, its silver light flooding the palace gardens with an ethereal glow that made Alice's heart ache with memories of the nightwood. There, the moon had been eternal, a constant companion that had never set and never waned, never abandoned its children to complete darkness. Here in the mortal realm, even the moon was bound by rules and cycles. Yet, tonight, it seemed to shine with an almost fey brightness, as if reaching across the veil between worlds to touch her with its familiar light. Oh, my you guys, I'm enjoying a red velvet bun cake. Yo, let's go. Time seemed to freeze in the moonlit gardens as Alice stared at the young man before her, her heart thundering in her chest. She waited for the horror to dawn on his face, for the inevitable moment when he would realize what she was and flee in terror. That moment never came. Instead, he took a careful step closer, the moonlight casting strange shadows across his features, making him seem almost as otherworldly as she was. "I'm Lysander," he said softly, as if speaking to a frightened deer that might bolt at any sudden movements. "And you're Alice of the Krasinski family?" Though I suspect that might not be entirely accurate. At the mention of her name, her true name, not the noble title that had been grafted onto it, Alice felt a shiver run through her. Her name was the one real thing she had carried with her from the Nightwood, the anchor that had kept her from dissolving into its eternal moonlight like so many others have before her. In this realm of shifting realities and fluid time, she had whispered it to herself beneath that never-setting moon. Alice, Alice, Alice. And other humans in the Nightwood had forgotten themselves, becoming little more than shadows dancing to fey music. She had clung onto those two syllables as if they were a lifeline to her very soul. "Alice," she said firmly through her trembling voice. "That part, at least, is true. Perhaps the only true thing about me." The moonlight seemed to gather around her as she spoke, drawing out her true nature like a flower coaxed to bloom in darkness. Lysander moved closer, and Alice noticed how the moonlight played across his features, highlighting the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. He offered her a handkerchief, and only then did she realize she had been crying. Silver tears that caught the moonlight and shimmered like stars fallen to earth. "A name can hold great power," he observed thoughtfully, "especially when it's the one truth we choose to keep." His shadows stretched long behind him in the moonlight, seeming to reach towards the wild forest beyond the garden walls. The moon's light grew stronger, as if responding to her emotional turmoil. It painted the garden in shades of silver and shadow that reminded her painfully of home, and not the manor where she now lived, but her true home that she had left behind, where moonlight was as constant as breathing. "In the Nightwood," she found herself saying, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "My name was all I had. When time stretched like silk and memories slipped away like water, I held onto it. Alice. It was my anchor when reality itself began to bend." She glanced up over at the moon, its familiar face both comfort and torment. There, the moon never set. It watched over us, eternal and unchanging. Sometimes I think it was the only witness to who I truly was. Lysander followed her gaze upwards, studying the moon as if seeing it with new eyes. "And now, here in our world, where even the moon must bow to time's laws?" A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside her, though it came out sounding more like a sob. "Now I have too many names. Lady Alice Krasinski, daughter of Lord George and Lady Maya. Each title another chain, another lie. But beneath it, you're still Alice," he said softly. "That truth hasn't changed, even when everything else has." The moon caught in his eyes as he spoke, reflecting back at her like twin stars. In the distance, music from the ballroom drifted through the garden, a haunting waltz that seemed to match the surreal nature of the moment. Alice found her gaze drawn to the reflection in a nearby fountain, her silver hair now fully visible in the moonlight, her crimson eyes bright in the darkness. The noble mask had fallen away completely, leaving only her true self exposed to the night air. The moon's light seemed to intensify, washing away all pretense and all illusion, until she stood before him purely as herself, a creature of twilight and wonder, of magic and mystery. Her hair caught the moonlight and held it, gleaming with an inner radiance that no mortal illusion could match. Most people would run away from such a sight, she whispered to the moon as much to him. Cough, cough. Would you care to dance? Alice asked suddenly, rising and offering his hand with an elegant bow. The moonlight cast a silver halo around him, making the moment feel more dreamlike than ever. Not with Lady Alice Krasimski, but with Alice of the Nightwood. The distinction meant everything. Alice hesitated for a moment before placing her hand in his, and as they began to move to distant music, she allowed herself to simply be who she was, silver hair gleaming in an eternal light of her oldest friend, crimson eyes bright with unshed tears, and her true name humming in her heart like a song. They danced under the moon's watchful gaze, their shadows merging and separating in an echo of their steps. The moonlight wrapped around them like a cloak, creating a private world where truth could exist without fear. The sweet scent of blooming jasmine drifted around them, mingling with the warmer air of the summer night, where a creature of the nightwood could dance with a mortal man and for a moment believe in the possibility of belonging to both worlds. What she didn't yet know was that this moment of truth, beautiful as it was, would set in motion a chain of events that would either break her illusions forever or shatter her heart in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. But that was tomorrow's concern. Tonight belonged to the dance, to her true name spoken in acceptance rather than fear, and to the eternal moon that watched over her still, a silver eye linking her past to her uncertain future. Wow! It's so cute! Oh my god! You see, guys? Alice does get happiness. Come on! Yo, something good. Let's go. Big pats in chat. That's right, guys. Alice got some happiness. And the next chapter title is very cute. Chapter 13. When Stars Smiled. Yeah, let me get a pat. Let's go. No! Give me back my pat right now. Right now. Oh, I gotta blow my nose. Okay, we're good. When Stars Smiled. They danced until the moon climbed high overhead, its silver light casting intricate shadows through the garden's leaves. When the music finally faded from the ballroom, Lysander reluctantly stepped back, though his eyes never left her face. Will you be here tomorrow? He asked softly. I would like to hear more about your nightwood. Alice hesitated, her practiced mind warring within her heart. The gardens are lovely in the moonlight, she answered carefully, neither promise nor rejection. But she did return the next night, and then the next, her meeting a delicate dance of revelation and restraint. In these stolen moments, Alice found herself Bedtime alarm, get out of here. Alice found herself sharing pieces of her true self that she had locked away for so long. She told him of the eternal moonlight, of magic that flowed like water, of music that could make stars dance. Lysander listened with rapt attention, though she could see him struggling to understand concepts that went beyond mortal experiences. "It sounds like something from a dream," he said one evening, as they sat beneath a weeping willow whose branches swayed in the warm summer breeze. "Sometimes I wonder if it was," she admitted, her fingers absently plucking notes on her kalimba. The melody she played was one she had learned from the nightwood, haunting and sweet. Everything there was both more and less real than here. During the days, Alice maintained her careful illusions. She played the perfect daughter to her enchanted parents, attended her lessons, and navigated the treacherous waters of noble society, but the strain was beginning to show. "You seem different lately, darling," Lady Maya observed one morning over breakfast, a knowing smile playing at her lips. "You've been humming in the gardens, and I caught you dancing by yourself at the library yesterday." Alice felt her cheeks warm, though she couldn't quite suppress her own smile. Even through the veil of enchantment, her parents' perceptiveness touched something real in her heart. "Our Alice is blooming like a summer rose," Lord George added with parental affection, looking up from his morning correspondence. "Though I suspect the moonlit gardens hold more appeal than your old father's book collection these days." Alice ducked her head, but not before catching the fond glance her parents exchanged. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine their love and understanding were genuine, that they could truly see and accept her joy. The court wizard, Camilla the Crimson, had begun watching Alice with increasingly sharp eyes whenever their paths crossed. At a garden party hosted by the Duke of Eastmark, Alice felt the wizard's gaze following her as she wove through the crowd. "There's something different about you, Lady Alice," Camilla observed, her keen eyes studying Alice's face. "You seem to glow with an inner light." Before Alice could formulate a response, Lysander appeared at her side. "Perhaps some ladies are simply more naturally suited to grace," he suggested smoothly, leading Alice away with a hand at her elbow. These moments with Lysander became the heart of her days. Each hour between their meetings... I gotta sip some more of this Chinese herbal medicine stuff. My throat is feeling a little bit raw. Yoop. See, guys, I can write happy. See, there's happiness right here. The stars are freaking smiling, guys. Come on. Come on. This throat is raw. It's raw. Easy there, Gordon Ramsay. Okay. Throat rehydrated. Hydration restored. These moments with Lysander became the heart of her days. Each hour between their meetings merely time to be endured until she could return to the moonlit gardens. There, she didn't need illusions or enchantments. Her silver hair could gleam freely, her crimson eyes could sparkle with real joy. And for the first time since leaving the Nightwood, she felt truly seen and accepted. A happiness spilled into her daily life, transforming her careful performances into genuine moments of delight. she found herself humming Nightwood melodies while reading in the library, dancing through the manor's halls when she thought no one was watching, and smiling at memories of conversations from the night before. It was after several weeks of bliss that the small seeds of disquiet began to root. Sometimes she would catch Lysander staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Other times, he would ask her questions about her magic that made her wonder about his true interests. And occasionally, she would notice him in deep conversations with other nobles at social gatherings, conversations that would suddenly abruptly stop when she approached. You're being paranoid, she told the reflection one evening as she was preparing for another moonlit meeting. But her reflection, currently showing her true self as she hadn't cast her daily glamour, only stared back with worried crimson eyes. Baroness Rose's voice drifted up from the garden below. Fascinating how she appeared so suddenly, isn't it? And now young Lysander seems quite captivated. Alice moved away from the window before she could hear any more, but the words settled in her stomach like cold lead. Was she truly being paranoid? Or was she simply seeing clearly for the first time? That night in the garden, Lysander seemed particularly attentive, his eyes following her every movement as she demonstrated a simple light-weaving spell. The magic came more easily here in the darkness, under the familiar moon. She crafted delicate strands of silvery light that danced between them like airborne streams. Beautiful, he whispered. When she looked up, she found him watching her face rather than the magic. Something in his intense gaze made her heart flutter with equal parts joy and unease. Lysander, she asked hesitantly, why did you follow me that first night? Why weren't you afraid when you saw who I really was? He reached out to catch one of the light strands, letting it twine around his fingers. How could anyone be afraid of something so wonderful? He answered, but his eyes held something deeper, something she couldn't quite decipher. Alice let the magic fade, plunging them back into moonlight and shadows. She watched him as Lysander's expression shifted in the darkness, wondering if she was finally seeing him clearly, or if, like everything else in her life, the truth was merely another illusion waiting to shatter. Dum 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 dum. Okay, we're getting close to a good place to leave everyone in suspense. Oh no. Had you going there right up until that last sentence, didn't I? I am indeed enjoying the newer narrating. I'm not gonna lie. It also helps with me learning how to enunciate things. Never been very good at that. Chapter 14. Whispers of Doubt. The late afternoon sun streamed through the manor's library windows, painting the books in shades of gold. Alice sat in her favorite reading nook, a well-worn volume of poetry open in her lap, but her eyes kept drifting to the garden where she would meet Lysander that evening. A smile tugged at her lips as she remembered their last encounter. How freely they had laughed together, how she had shown him the way she could make moonflowers bloom before their time, how his eyes had lit up with wonder rather than fear at her magic. But for the first time since leaving the Nightwood, she had someone who knew her true self, who saw past her illusions to a real Alice beneath. The joy of it almost was too large for her heart to contain. Sometimes she caught herself humming fey melodies without meaning to, her happiness spilling out in ways that made maintaining her usual careful control more difficult. loud coughing. Yet, even as she basked in this newfound acceptance, darker thoughts crept in like shadows at sunset. How much of her truth could she really share with Lysander? Her eyes drifted to her father, Lord George, working diligently at his desk. She brushed against his surface thoughts out of habit, a daily ritual to ensure her enchantments held firm. His mind was full of mundane concerns, estate management, correspondence, plans for the upcoming harvest festival. But beneath it lay her magic, the spells that made him believe she was his beloved daughter. But what would Lysander think if he knew the full extent of her deceptions? That the loving parents she spoke of were really puppets dancing to her magical strings. She could almost see the horror in his eyes if she told them just how much she had rewritten their memories and planted false years of affection and family bonds. And what of her actions before coming to the manor? The months she had spent spreading misery through Valerous, twisting minds and poisoning relationships out of spite and jealousy. She remembered the dark satisfaction she had taken in it, how she had justified her cruelty as revenge against a world that denied her love and acceptance. Alice's hands tightened around her book. Lysander saw her as wonderful, magical, a beautiful mystery from another realm. Would that wonder ever turn to disgust if he knew the full truth? Would his acceptance wither if he understood just how much pain and manipulation lay in her wake? "Everything all right, dear?" Lord George asked, looking up from his work. "You seem tense." "Just lost in thought," Alice replied, forcing a smile. She felt the familiar surge of guilt as his enchanted love washed over her. This too was a deception, perhaps her cruelest one. Every warm smile, every parental gesture, every moment of family affection, all of it crafted by her magic, as artificial as her human appearance. She had finally found someone who accepted her true form, who didn't flinch from her crimson eyes or silver hair. But could any mortal, even one as seemingly understanding as Lysander, accept the darker truths that lay beneath her surface? The fact that she had built her entire life on lies and manipulation, that she had caused genuine harm to others in her desperation to belong? That evening, as she prepared for another moonlit meeting, Alice found herself studying her reflection with new intensity. Her true form shimmered in the mirror, silver hair catching the last rays of sunset, crimson eyes bright with uncertainty. She could feel the weight of all of her deceptions pressing down on her, growing heavier by the day. The garden was awash in moonlight when she arrived, the summer air heavy with scent of night blooming jasmine. Her heart lifted at the sight of Lysander by the fountain. Here was the one person in all of the world who knew her true self and stayed anyways. The joy of it felt miraculous, like finding a star that had fallen just for her. But something in his stance made her pause in the shadows. Old habits whispered their warnings. Before she could stop herself, she extended her magical senses towards his thoughts. His surface thoughts were a swirl of colors and impressions. Wonder at her otherworldly beauty, desire to understand, and something about power. Then he noticed her approach, and his mind shifted to simpler patterns of greeting and warmth. Alice immediately felt guilty for prying. This was Lysander, who had accepted her true form without flinching, who listened to her stories in the night with genuine fascination. Why couldn't she just trust in the happiness that she'd found? "You look troubled," he said softly as she joined. "Do I?" Alice kept her voice light. "Perhaps it's just the moonlight playing tricks." "No tricks," Lysander smiled, taking her hand. "I've learned to read your expressions, even when you're wearing your other face." The comment sent a chill down her spine. Had he really learned to see through her illusions so easily? Or was there something else behind his careful observations? They walked through the moonlit gardens, Lysander telling her about his day, about the latest court gossips, and about nothing and everything. Alice found herself watching his face more than listening to his words, trying to reconcile the gentle warmth of his manner with the fragments of thoughts she had caught earlier. "Tell me about the Nightwood," he said suddenly. "About your magic there. Was it different from how it works here?" Alice hesitated. Never asked such direct questions about her abilities before. "Why do you want to know?" "Simple curiosity." He squeezed her hand gently. "I want to understand everything about you." She could use her magic now, push deeper into his thoughts and find the true reasons for his questions. But doing so would alert him to her presence in his thoughts, and she feared what that revelation might do to the fragile trust between them. Instead, she deflected with a demonstration, calling forth small lights that danced around them like elaborate stars. Lysander watched with obvious fascination, and when she dared to brush against his surface thoughts, she found them full of genuine wonder. But later, as they said their goodbyes, she caught another fragment. "Need to tell her soon. Can't keep..." The thought cut off as he leaned in to kiss her cheek, his lips warm against her naturally cool skin. "Sweet dreams, my fey lady," he whispered. Alice watched him disappear into the darkness, her heart a tangle of emotions she couldn't quite unravel. She could feel the warmth of his kiss, even as her mind turned his fractured thoughts over and over like a puzzle piece that refused to fit together. The moon hung high and cold above her, its light no longer the comfort it had once been. In its silvery glow, even the simplest truth could cast shadows of doubt, and Alice was beginning to wonder if she had merely traded one form of illusion for another. She touched her cheeks where he had kissed her, remembering the genuine affection in the gesture. Yet she also remembered his probing questions, his keen interest in her abilities, the conversations that stopped when she'd approach. How much of his fascination was with her, and how much was it with what she could do? As she made her way to her chambers, Alice felt the weight of each step like lead in her bones. She had spent so long crafting illusions and reading minds that she no longer knew how to simply trust. Every gesture had to be analyzed, every word examined for hidden meaning, and every thought scrutinized for betrayal. The worst part was that she couldn't be sure if her growing paranoia was justified wisdom or the price of too many deceptions. Had she spent so long wearing lies that she could no longer recognize truth when it had been freely offered to her? In her room, a reflection showed her shifting between forms, silver hair to brown, crimson eyes to mundane. As her control wavered with turbulent emotions, tomorrow she would have to maintain her masks again, play the perfect daughter, the graceful noble lady. But tonight, alone with her doubts, Alice finally allowed herself to acknowledge a terrible truth. Sometimes the most dangerous illusions were the ones we crafted in our own minds. Bum 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 bum. It's all a little bit sad now. It's a little bit flop_Remi. It's so sad. It's so sad. The one line that gets me is like him like being like, "I can recognize what you're thinking just looking at you," and she's like, "Oh my god, I can see through my freaking illusions." Ah! But anyways, chapter 15, Autumn Shadows. Summer had slipped away from Valerous like a forgotten dream, replaced by autumn's melancholy beauty. The air carried the sharp scent of turning leaves and wood smoke, and the garden that had witnessed Alice's moonlight meetings with Lysander now blazed with dying glory. Maple leaves burning scarlet and gold, ivy vines blushing crimson against the manor walls. Even the light had changed, taking on that particular autumn quality, clear and golden, yet somehow distant, as if already remembering warmer days. I can see right through you. No, really, I have X-ray vision. Alice worked her way through the quiet streets with the grace of a shadow, her magic wrapped around her like a cloak of invisibility. The cobblestone still held the day's warmth, though the evening air had grown crisp enough to make people hurry past with collars turned up and shawls drawn tight. She hadn't meant to start following Lysander. At first, it was just a glimpse of him through the windows, a brush against his surface thoughts during a chance encounter. But as the leaves began to turn and her doubts grew deeper, she found herself drawn into patterns of observation that she knew bordered on obsession. I am here to procrastinate. Yo, is that Devin I see? Hello, Devin. We're just getting to some very depressing parts in Alice's story. Must meet her tonight. Can't let anyone know. The fragment of thought reached her as Lysander crossed the manor courtyard below. Alice pressed herself into an alcove, though she knew her concealment spell was perfect. Dried leaves skittered past his feet as he walked, their rustling a counterpoint to his steady stride. Something about his purposeful movement made her chest tight with anxiety. Before she could question her decision, Alice whispered a spell of concealment, not her usual illusions that she wore like a second skin, but something closer to her nightwood magic, a twist of shadow and silence that let her move unseen. The effort made her head spin. Maintaining her family's enchantments already strained her daily reserves. And hello, Jade. Pat, 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 pat. She followed him through the streets strewn with early fallen leaves, keeping to the lengthening shadows of late afternoon. The wind carried fragments of his thoughts back to her. Running out of time. Need to explain. Each incomplete sentiment wound her anxiety tighter. Lysander's paths led to the quieter part of town, where noble houses gave way to merchant shops and cafes. The setting sun painted the cobblestones in shades of amber and gold, while fallen leaves danced around their feet like tiny flames. Alice stayed several paces behind, her heart thundering so loud she feared it might break her concealment spell. The cafe was a warm rectangle of light in the gathering dusk, its windows fogged with steam from kettles and breath. Inside, patrons hunched over cups of tea and spiced ciders, seeking comfort against autumn's chill. I'm going to be staying along through a pat, 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 pat. Take these paths, they shall comfort you. We're doing good. We're just reading some more of Alice's story, which is very depressing. I mean, very happy and brightful. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Warm rectangle. Lysander chose a table near the window, his agitated movements betraying an unusual nervousness. He checked his pocket watch, then began to pace, his shadow stretching and shrinking as he passed beneath the cafe's gas lamps. Hope she comes. Need to get this right. His surface thoughts were clearer now that she was closer, but they only deepened her unease. Who was he waiting for? Alice pressed closer to the window, her concealment spell making her reflection fade like morning mist against the glass. The answer came in a swish of skirts and a flash of familiar emerald green. Baroness Rose approached from the opposite direction, her copper hair aflame in the last rays of sunlight, She moved with such unusual calculated grace, each step a study in practiced elegance. Alice's stomach turned at the sight. Rose had always represented everything she wasn't: naturally noble, effortlessly belonging, and unquestionably human. "You're late," Lysander said, but his tone held none of the careful gentleness he used with Alice. Instead, there was an easy familiarity that felt like acid in her chest. "A lady is never late," Rose replied, her laugh sharp and bright as breaking glass. Everyone else is simply early. Shall we go inside? The evening grows cool, and we have much to discuss." Alice crept closer as they settled at their table, though her heart screamed at her to run, to flee before she could learn any more painful truths. The cafe's warmth pressed against her concealment spell, making it hard to maintain. Through the foggy glass, she caught fragments of their conversation. "Need to be careful of this. Does she suspect anything yet? The truth will come out eventually. Matter of timing." A wizard is never early or late. They arrive when they need to. Each word was a needle in her heart. She reached out for magic, trying to catch their surface thoughts, but the effort of maintaining both her concealment and her family's distant enchantments left her with little power to spare. What she did catch was worse than silence. Their minds held warmth, familiarity, and above all else, a sense of shared purpose that excluded her completely. "Boo, boo, Rose, boo, boo, throw juice on her dress." "Boo, you suck." Where is it? I lost my train of thought. Okay, there it is. Inside, Lysander leaned close to Rose, their heads bent together in an intimate discussion. The sight sent Alice's mind spinning into a kaleidoscope of possibilities, each more devastating than the last. Had their moonlit meetings been nothing but a careful act? Had he been studying her all along, cataloging her abilities, learning her weaknesses? Every shared secret, every vulnerable moment, every time she had let her true form show. Had it all been nothing but research for whatever scheme they were plotting? Oh, there's the juice. Before I go to bed, can I show my new OC of myself? Yeah, we'll post it in the images channel. Oh, brother, this guy stinks. Her eyes burned as she watched through the window. Rose's hand rested casually on the table, inches from Lysander's. Their posture spoke of long familiarity, of shared history, of a comfort that Alice had foolishly thought she alone shared with him. The cafe's warm light seemed to create a bubble around them, a perfect picture of belonging from which she was entirely excluded. Tell her tomorrow. Can't keep hiding. The thought drifted clearly from Lysander, and Alice felt her concealment spell waver as panic clawed at her chest. The words seemed to echo in her mind, growing and distorting with each repetition. Tell her what? That their entire relationship had been a lie? That he had been gathering intelligence for Camilla the Crimson all along? That he and Rose had been laughing at her pathetic attempts to find acceptance? The walls of her careful control began to crack. She could feel her magic responding to her distress. Her illusions of invisibility flickered as her concentration bent. She had to get away before her powers betrayed her completely, before the pain and rage building in her chest would explode outwards with devastating force. Lost my place again. I might make it into a VTuber model. Either or you can put in whichever one. Tell her tomorrow. Can't keep hiding. The thought drifted clearly from Lysander. Wait, I reread that. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The careful walls she had built around her heart were crumbling, and with them, her magic threatened to unravel before her concealment spell could fall completely. She turned and fled, dead leaves swirling in her wake as she ran blindly through the darkening streets. She didn't stop until she reached her room in the manor, slamming the door shut behind her and pressing her back against it. Her reflection in the vanity mirror showed her true form breaking through her illusion, silver hair and crimson eyes, flickering like a guttering candle as she struggled to maintain control. How could she have been so foolish? She had let herself believe in the possibility of being truly known and truly accepted. But wasn't this exactly what she had deserved for building her entire existence on lies? The irony of it made her want to laugh and scream at the same time. Tomorrow, Lysander had thought, tomorrow something would change. But as Alice sank to the floor, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs, she wondered if she had already lost everything that mattered. No, Alice. And the next chapter is called The Shattering, so we're gonna have to get mentally prepared for that. Let me observulate the creativity or images. You have pointy ears, and you have strawberry jelly all over you. Very nice, very nice. Oh, come on. I'm sorry, Bar, dude. This is where it gets a little bit flop underscore Remi. I'm sorry. Elfdeld, controlled by slime. Wow. Very nice. That's a creative concept. Big pats. Okay, guys, get ready for this. Chapter 16. The Shattering. Alice barely made it through her bedroom door before the first sob tore from her throat. Raw and primal, her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor, her body curling in on itself as if trying to contain the pain that threatened to tear her apart. The sobs came harder now, great gasping things that seemed to start in her very soul. No, 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 no. She kneed softly, rocking back and forth, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her illusions flickered with each sob, brown hair to silver, brown eyes to crimson. But this time, she didn't try to maintain them. She let them fail. Let everything fail. What did it matter now? Tears ran down her face like liquid silver, dropping onto the carpet where they gleamed in the moonlight streaming through her windows. She had cried before, of course, in loneliness, in frustration, in fear. But this was different. This was the crying of someone watching the world crumble to ash, each tear carrying away another piece of hope she hadn't even known she was harboring. He's with her right now. The thought sent a fresh wave of agony through her, and Alice pressed her palm against her mouth to muffle the sound trying to escape. In her mind's eye, she could still see them in that warm, cozy cafe, heads bent close together, sharing secrets and smiles that were never meant for her. Lysander's face, so familiar and dear, animated with the same warmth he had once shown only to her. "I trusted you," she whispered in the darkness, her voice breaking on each word. "I trusted you. I trusted you. I trusted you." The phrase became a mantra, each repetition driving the knife deeper into her heart. After Alice's backstory is finished, Remi should read War and Peace. I don't know what that is. You think I know literature? Ha! But yes, very nice concept. First drawing in a year and a half. First time using neon style. Very nice. I agree. It does look good so far. Hours seemed to pass as she lay there, curled on her floor as moonlight crept across the room. The sobs gradually quieted to whimpers, and then silent tears that seemed endless. Her throat felt raw, her eyes burnt, and still the pain wouldn't stop. Every gentle moment with Lysander replayed in her mind, now tainted with doubt and confusion. Alice pushed herself to sitting, her back against the cool wall. She stared at her reflection in the vanity across the room, a creature of moonlight and shadow, her true form now fully visible as her illusions fell away completely. The sight of herself, so alien and strange, sparked something inside of her. With a gesture born of pure despair, she sent a pulse of magic towards the mirror. Glass cracked with a sound like distant thunder, fracturing her reflection into 1,000 pieces. Each fragment seemed to show a different version of her, and she had no idea which one was real. Here was the lost girl from the Nightwood, dreaming of belonging. There was the perfect noble daughter she had pretended to be. Another shard showed the trusting fool who had given her heart to Lysander. But which one was truly her? Had any of them ever been real? The confusion began to crystallize into something else. Something harder, colder. It started in her chest, spreading outward with each new thought that occurred to her. The tears finally stopped, dried by the growing chill in her chest. Each fragment of the mirror seemed to mock her of possibilities. He's telling them everything about you. Every secret you shared. Every weakness you shown. Every time you let your guard down. The shards caught the moonlight, throwing scattered reflections across the walls like stars fallen to earth. Alice watched them dance, feeling something shift inside of her. The pain was still there, but it was changing, transforming into something else entirely. In the broken mirror, her silver hair gleamed like captured moonlight, her crimson eyes bright with tears, but beginning to spark with something new. A truth began to form in her mind, as sharp and cold as the broken glass before her. If this was how they saw her, a creature of the Nightwood, something to be feared and used, then perhaps that was exactly what she should become. The thought settled in her bones with the weight of certainty, turning her tears to frost and her pain to purpose. Very well, she whispered to her fractured reflections, her voice quiet but steady. If they want a creature of the Nightwood, and that is what they shall have. Her hair floated around her face as if suspended in water, her eyes blazing with newfound resolve. She looked otherworldly. She looked exactly what they feared her to be. A smile curved her lips, terrible and beautiful as a knife in moonlight. Let them have their schemes, their secret meanings, their careful plans. She had centuries of magic at her command, and a heart now frozen solid with purpose. Tomorrow would bring change, yes, but not the kind they were plotting. And she would make sure they never forget what it meant to betray a daughter of the ethereal moonlight. Eternal moonlight. I'm sorry, what it meant to betray a daughter of the eternal moonlight. Guess there's no therapist in the Nightwood. No, sirree, there sure as hell ain't. Yes, this is very depressing. Okay, so the next chapter is really pretty short. It's called Vengeance Dawn. I think we will read this chapter just to get a little taste, and then we're gonna stop there for tonight. So yes, let me just read through this one here. Chapter 17, Vengeance Dawn. Can't believe we read 17 chapters today. That's insane. As dawn broke over Valerous, Alice stood Alice rose from the floor where she had spent her night, her body stiff from hours of stillness. The morning light caught on the shards of broken mirror, each fragment reflecting her true form. Silver hair dulled by grief, crimson eyes hardened with purpose. She made no attempt to recast her illusions. Let the world see what she truly loved, what she truly was, if only for these private moments. Alice, darling, her mother's voice came from the door, wrapped in enchanted warmth that felt like needles in Alice's mind. Are you awake? You weren't at dinner last night. The genuine concern in Lady Maya's tone, concern Alice herself had woven into her mother's very being, twisted in her chest like a knife. Once, that magical love had been her greatest comfort. Now, it was just another reminder of how easily hearts and minds could be manipulated. I'm feeling well. I'm not feeling well, Alice replied, her voice raw from crying. She reinforced her mother's enchantments with a savage twist of magic, ensuring the woman would accept her absence without question. The spell came easily, powered by the cold anger crystallizing in her chest. Of course, dear. Shall I have some tea sent up? No. The words came out sharper than intended. Alice closed her eyes and took a breath and added more softly, Thank you, Mother. I just need some rest. She listened to her mother's footsteps retreat, each click of the heels against the marble, another reminder of the perfect, noble life she had crafted for herself. A life that now felt like a cage rather than a dream come true. Turning from the door, Alice began to pace her room, her bare feet silent upon the carpet. Her mind no longer clouded by raw grief, worked with cold precision. She had spent months learning the intricate dance of noble society, mapping the delicate web of relationships and rivalries. She knew who Lysander trusted, who he confided in, who he relied upon. She paused before the broken mirror, studying her fractured reflection. The nightwood taught her patience, had shown her how a subtle whisper could be more devastating than a shout. She would not storm into the cafe where Lysander still sat with Rose, would not expose herself in an outburst of obvious magic. No, she would do what creatures of the nightwood did best. Work from the shadows, twist perceptions, plant seeds of doubt that would grow into forests of suspicion. Dun 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 dun! Yay! And we're gonna stop there for now. Dun 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 sadness. So what did you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. In my comment section, I mean this chat right here, right now. Oh God. Yeah, as you can tell, happiest parts of Alice's time may have passed. They may have maybe passed. Just a little bit. So it's gonna be a roller coaster of emotional distress from this point forward. I'm sorry. But on the bright side, she has some resolve now. She's sure of herself. It's like anger and coldness, but she's sure of herself. For once, she's got that going for her. I am enjoying myself too much. Narrating is kind of awesome, I'm not gonna lie. It kind of, I don't know, it helps teach me how to read words with in like a narration, but like the melatonin is taking its toll on me. Okay, my brain isn't working very well anymore. Yeah. Nom. We might continue this on Wednesday. We might have a stream on Wednesday. I don't know. If not, then we'll maybe continue this on Friday, or maybe we won't. Who knows? But I definitely do want to finish the story on stream. I'm having a lot of fun with it. and being able to look back at the stream and listen to myself narrate the story as well. Pretty sick, pretty sick. Gonna go EP, good night, Jade. Pat, 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 pat. But yeah, I'm excited to show you guys some more of the wizard arc when we get to it. The creation of that story is definitely going more slower and methodical compared to when I made this story, but in exchange the chapters are longer and more fleshed out, and I really like that. So have more thick chapters instead of many smaller chapters, you know. Oh my goodness, I am so EP. Nom 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 nom. I'm gonna put on some music in the background. Pat, pat, pat. Is that a pat? Is that a pat? No pat. Sadness. And let me pat command. There we go. Alright, she should be working again. Pat, pat, pat. Pat, 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 pat. Pat, 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 pat. Stupid bot. There we go. Pat, 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 pat. Why, thank you. Why, thank you. But yeah, that's the Marionette family, like about, a little bit over 50% of it. Yeah, it's got some twists, it's got some turns. It's a little bit rough in some areas, because I don't know, I have not refined my ability to craft the stories through AI perfectly just yet. So I don't feel like it's got some little rough patches here and there, but overall very incredibly cool to like have a story of a character you have made and be able to read it. I am enjoying it. I enjoyed making it, I am enjoying sharing it, and I'm enjoying narrating it. So I hope you guys are enjoying it as well, and that you're enjoying this little semi-depressing story that I am spinning for you all here. Nom nom nom, sleepy EB Fox. Pow. 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 But yeah, for the rest of this year week, maybe video game, I do not know. If we do play a video game, I don't know. Still think this needs to be checked. No comments. My brain is an enigma of head pats and depressing tales. It's a wonderful thing, truly. Also, I've been playing a wonderful little visual novel called It Gets So Lonely Here. It also has depressing storytelling, but also with like Yuri in there as well. A fantastic game. Been loving it so far. Got murdered by a mermaid. It was great. I discovered it by like the artist in Pocket Mirror that I really like.
You know what time it is? Lobotomy time. Our Remi, sewing needle.
No! Sewing my brain. But the artist Yuzuki in Pocket Mirror, they did other work in other games that I absolutely adored. And this is one of the other games. Which, let me play actually some of the music. Here is The Mermaid. It looks pretty. It is pretty. And let me play some music for it because it is pretty, and I've only gone down on one route so far, but like, yes, you may get a little bit capatted a little bit, but it's done in such a poetic and lovely way. I can't be upset at it. It's wonderful. And in this song you can hear the mermaid singing in the distance. got like a really nice harp to it too. But yeah, I've played a little bit of that game so far. I've been very much enjoying it. Yum, 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 yum. This mermaid is making me very, very eepy. Yum, 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 yum. Also, I asked the artist directly on how he's made some of these songs. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but I asked them. And I was surprised to learn that the voice you're hearing is not a real person voice. It is a synthesized voice from Synth 5 or Synth V, I don't know what it is. But I was super duper surprised to hear that. So I might try giving that software a go at some point. Yeah, what? Yeah, right? It sounds so like... It sounds so good. It's really lovely. It's very lovely. If you guys don't mind a tiny bit of a spoiler, I can talk about what happens with the mermaid. You're like lost running in the forest all alone. You're running from something, but you don't know what, or at least the narration doesn't tell you what. And you're running away and you have a chance to go to the coast, a castle, or a village. So I choose the coast. I went to the coast. There's not much there except a little broken down house. We take refuge there and we hear a song in the night. We go there, we meet a mermaid, and you know, we talk, we bond, and we're like, yo, what's up? And the mermaid is like, yes, I used to have a human that I used to meet here, but I haven't seen her in such a long time, and I am so lonely. And she says, it gets so lonely here at one point, and that seems like that's the title of the game. Slowly but surely, you blossom a little relationship with the mermaid. Your character kind of lacks confidence. She seems interested in you, and you're like, blush tee hee ooh woo. Some days pass, make a cute flower crown for her. She brings you a cute shell as a gift. Things are going great. And at one point, she's like, you know, I get to admire parts of your world from up here, but you never get to look at my world, because it's below the waters. Perhaps I can show you some of my world. And then your character's like, I mean, okay, I suppose. The mermaid grabs hold, and you're like, wow, this mermaid is like really holding on to me pretty tight. Then you go beneath the water, you admire the scenery, and you're like, wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty nice, that's really pretty. But then you're like, no, I never really told her the whole breathing thing. So then you like, you poke her, you're like, hey, and then she's like, oh yeah, what's wrong? And you're like, and she's like, oh yeah, your lungs probably feel like cold iron right about now. I've heard about drowning, but as a mermaid, I don't have to worry about such silly things. And then your character's kind of starting to panic rising a little bit. Let me play the other part of the mermaid song. This one is called The Mermaid, and then in parentheses, Drowning. So you're starting to panic, you're starting to drown, and the mermaid is like, well, you see, sorry about lying to you, but the other human that left me, she left and never came back. She went off the coast. I don't know what happened to her. She may have been killed, she may have died. Humans are such fragile creatures. But with you, I'm not gonna let go. I'm gonna keep you. And, you know, I'll dress you in fine pearls and it'll be great. And she treats, you know, your death as a minor inconvenience. So, of course, your character's like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? And then, you know, from there, you slowly drown and die. And then the story does some cool things. But I'm not going to spoil that. But you do die a nice watery gravy death because of the love from the mermaid. It's sad, it's poetic. It makes me go, ah! So I'm excited to see the other two paths and where the story itself goes. I already kind of know roughly what happens in the other two arcs because of just the names of the other songs. The song names are very direct. Gosh, I do really like how the song kind of is like the first song, but the sound of the water is just growing louder and louder. Also, I put a tweet in drafts that I haven't published yet, but let me take a look at it. Oh, desktop bookmarks or drafts are different than phone drafts. Okay, very nice. But the song's ended. No, I was too happy. There we go. But anyways, what I was saying. Oh yeah, the draft was like, you know, after playing Misi Day and doing the tier list, and after playing this game, I'm starting to realize that my type of woman and my preference for the woman is kind of directly linked with how efficiently she can murder me. So I'm learning new things about myself. I'm learning new things. Because who was in the S tier for Misi Day? And also, mermaid that murders me, she gets a big thumbs up. Hell yeah, let's go. Twitter dark mode is not default. You fool, you fool. So now you want dark mode, Mr. Unused Discord in light mode. Seriously, how was Sayori, your girl? She's such a sweetheart though. She's so cute. I want Sayori to be happy. That's all I want, god dang it. Screw Monica, screw Yuri, screw Natsuki. I want Sayori to be happy. All I want. That's all I want. This is also another beautiful song made by Yuzuki, Obsession. This is from the game that technically happens after It Gets Lonely Here, but I didn't read that closely enough, so I played this game and then things didn't make sense. I have to go back and play It Gets Lonely Here to fully understand and fully appreciate the story. Why give me light? Oh, give me the light mode. Why was the default theme not default? Why is dark mode default? Yeah, because they don't want to burn out your retinas. Because they want you to stay on the website instead of being like, oh my god, my eyes hurt. I'm gonna click off this page. Also, this is the music that's that for me mentally is for like Alice's time on the Wizard Island. Guys, you know her perception of time, and time plays a large factor in the soundtrack. So you can hear that tick, 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 tick. And then this is the Obsession song. This is the first song. Next one is Porcelain Doll. Tick, tick. The clock is moving slower. And then the next song is Porcelain Doll, but it's like there's several P's, capitalizations in the middle of it. And it sounds like tick, tick, tick. More distorted, more slow. And then we go into God. God. Nightmares beyond mortal comprehension. And we have, but I won't subject you to that. Yeah, so very much love the soundtrack. Absolutely lovely. Absolutely lovely. And change the name of the theme. Default is default. But I feel like I have rambled on long enough. I've been Remi the Yap Fox nonstop for about 3 hours now. Pretty audio, especially that last one. Very much so. But let me head pat the outroduction button. Thank you everyone for stopping by, listening to me ramble about my D&D stories. I am very happy I was able to share it, and I'm very happy that you all listened and liked it. But yeah, until next time, which may be Friday, maybe Wednesday, or maybe Friday. I don't fully know just yet, but we'll see. We'll see. But until then, I'll see you all later.